the daily life of a secret agent in American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 My Weird Brother. The sirens in the distance were getting closer and closer. Ron followed the traditional customs of the Orientals and poured a bucket of red paint on the warehouse door. He left an IRS tax notice in a clean and eye-catching place and walked away. But he did not leave immediately, but hid in a hidden shadow nearby. 15 minutes later, Sheriff Jack finally arrived at the scene belatedly. Looking at the bodies of the gangsters with different death conditions, he found a corner where no one was and took out his cell phone. "Lee, your warehouse has been targeted by the IRS, and he's a very troublesome person. I suggest that you pay the taxes quickly, then they will let you go." "What? Kill him? Are you kidding? He's one of the best agents of the IRS. He just wiped out all the people guarding your warehouse by himself." "Yes, no one was left alive, and he even splashed red paint on the door of the warehouse. Although I don't know what this means, I know that with that guy's methods, if you haven't paid the taxes yet, he will definitely go to your house with heavy weapons next time. I don't care about anything else, but we can't lose a penny of the FBI's share. If it's less, you know what we will do? I promise, I will rush into your house with a commando team the next day. Is that enough?" Ron pressed the stop button on the recorder in his hand, and the microphone on the button was connected to the eavesdropping devices that Ron had planted in several places when he left just now, one of which happened to be not far from Inspector Jack. As expected, everything was just as Ron had guessed. Toretto's case was not that simple. Behind Toretto was the Korean gang, and behind the Korean gang was the FBI. No wonder in the movie, the FBI locked its target on Toretto without much effort. It was only because they had no evidence that they sent a stupid boy to go undercover to collect evidence. It would be best if they could find an opportunity to catch both of them, so that they could be convicted without affecting the Korean gang, and then the two sides would work together to find the next scapegoat. In other words, not only Toretto, but also O'Connor, the stupid boy, was tricked. As for why the top FBI officials did this, is there any need to explain? Of course, it was to earn some extra funds. As for who got the funds, that was another question. Ron put away the recording equipment with satisfaction and walked out of the alley, waving a taxi home. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. In the apartment, Leonard was awakened by a special noise and sat up suddenly from the bed. "Sheldon," Leonard called out tentatively but got no response. Could the house be robbed? Leonard picked up a laser sword from Star Wars, lit it up to give himself courage, and walked into the living room wearing only socks. "Sheldon," Leonard called softly again, but there was still no one, and Sheldon was not in his bedroom. The door of the living room was opened at some point, and the door of Penny's apartment opposite was also opened. Leonard vaguely saw a busy figure inside. It was Sheldon. "Why did you run to Penny's apartment in the middle of the night instead of sleeping?" "Sheldon," Leonard growled, and Sheldon quickly made a hush gesture to interrupt. "Penny is sleeping, keep your voice down, are you crazy?" Leonard put the lightsaber aside speechlessly. "You can't break into a woman's apartment in the middle of the night to clean up." Leonard got stuck in the middle of his words, and thought for a long time before finding a suitable word. As he said, Sheldon was tidying up Penny's room. When he came to deliver furniture during the day, the mess in Penny's room caused Sheldon to feel very uncomfortable. So he planned to clean up the room while Penny was sleeping. "I have no choice. I can't sleep when I think of our living room outside my bedroom, and the room across the corridor is like this," Sheldon said helplessly while putting several pillows back in place. Leonard felt that his roommate who had no common sense was simply hopeless. "Do you realize that if Penny wakes up now, we can't reasonably explain why she is here now? I just gave you a reasonable explanation." "No. You just gave an explanation, and its rationality will be decided by your jury." He was so excited that he accidentally raised his voice a little bit, and Penny's snoring suddenly became heavier. The two hurriedly looked back. Fortunately, Penny just turned over and continued to sleep. Sheldon seized the opportunity to start teaching mode. "You should speak in the bass range. Evolution has made women very sensitive to high-pitched noise when they are sleeping. That's why they wake up when the baby cries. If you don't want to wake her up, speak in the bass range." Leonard was speechless. "This is ridiculous." He accidentally raised his voice a little higher. And Penny snored again. No, Sheldon cleared his throat and changed to a bass-like tone. This is ridiculous. Leonard looked back and saw that Penny didn't respond at all. But now was obviously not the time to learn such useless knowledge. Okay, you are right. We have to leave now while she is still asleep. I will never leave before I tidy up the house, Sheldon said firmly. Leonard knew that this weirdo would definitely do what he said, and he helplessly covered his head and leaned against the wall. How could I meet such a weirdo? If you have time to lean over there, why don't you come and clean up together, so that we can finish it faster, Sheldon complained, and Leonard had no choice but to help clean up Penny's room. But the two seemed to have forgotten that there was another tenant in the house besides Penny. Just as they were working, a cold metal pipe suddenly hit their heads. I guess you steal things so that you can have money for your trip to hell, right? Dear Mr. Thief, it was a pistol. The two people's hearts tightened immediately. If they hadn't heard Ron's voice later, they would have almost screamed out of fear. Fortunately, they held back. Ron, it's us, Leonard and Sheldon, Leonard whispered, causing Penny to snore in dissatisfaction again. Put down the gun quickly. Oh my god, what if it goes off accidentally? This was the first time Leonard had a gun pointed at his head since he was a child. If he hadn't had the habit of drinking water before going to bed, his pants might have been wet by now. Ron. This joke is not funny at all. Sheldon's pants weren't already wet. Take your damn pistol away, or I'll call Mom. For a strong brother like Ron, Sheldon only has one trick, which is to tell his parents. At least Ron will care about his family's opinions. Pistol, Ron smiled with a prank. Are you talking about these two high-intensity flashlights in my hand? Ron took down the metal object nailed to their heads and showed it to them. Where is the pistol? It's clearly two high-intensity flashlights. The two secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, as a law enforcer, it does not mean that I approve of your behavior of breaking into private houses late at night. You'd better give me a reasonable explanation. Ron stared at the two people. I said that because Penny's room is too messy, we came here late at night to help clean up the house. Do you believe it? Leonard was ready to be refuted by Ron when he said this, but surprisingly, Ron nodded in approval. Believe it? Why not? Everything is taken for granted for my weird brother. I've gotten used to it. Leonard almost forgot that they were brothers. He was speechless. He had worried for nothing. Ron threw his coat on the sofa, loosened his tie comfortably, and drank a bottle of ice water from the refrigerator. Sheldon stared at Ron with dissatisfaction, said nothing, and just silently hung the coat he had just thrown on the sofa on the hanger. I just came back from work, so I won't play with you. You two have cleaned up enough. Remember to go out and close the door. Good night. I like my elf brother who helps clean the house after everyone falls asleep, and his friends. After saying that, Ron went back to the bedroom and lay down on the bed without taking off his clothes. From the corner of the room revealed by the door, Leonard found that Ron's room was very tidy, and everything was arranged in an orderly manner, which was in sharp contrast to the mess in the living room and Penny's room. The next morning, Sheldon walked out of the bedroom humming a song, looking refreshed, while Leonard was lying on the bar with a cup of coffee in his arms. Sheldon greeted him happily. I must say that I slept very well. Although it was not long, the quality of sleep was very good. Leonard, I'm not surprised at all. The panacea for insomnia is to run to the neighbor's house to clean up in the middle of the night. Even with Sheldon's low EQ, he could hear the deep resentment in Leonard's words. Is this irony? Leonard asked back. What do you think? Just take it as it is. But I think it is a good way to improve the quality of life of Penny and my brother. Leonard rolled his eyes and regretted again why he wanted to share a house with such a weirdo. Maybe we should sneak in again tonight and wash her carpet too. Sheldon hesitated. Will this be too much? Of course. Leonard drank the coffee in one gulp. Oh my god. Do I have to hold up a sarcastic sign every time I speak? Do you have a sarcastic sign? Sheldon asked curiously, and Leonard finally couldn't stand it anymore and collapsed on the sofa. The apartment next door. Knock, knock, knock. Ron was still half asleep when he was awakened by a loud knock on the door. Ron opened the door and saw Penny standing outside with an angry look on her face. Ron. What's wrong with you? Penny pointed to the neatly organized living room. Ron looked like he was going to enjoy a good show. He took the coffee machine on the table and started to make himself a cup of coffee. No, it wasn't me. No, who else could it be? The keys to this room only belong to you and me, and, at this point, Penny finally remembered that he had given the spare key to Leonard. Ron twitched the note on the table. It was a little far away, so he couldn't see what was written on it, but the handwriting seemed to be from Sheldon. Chapter 27 My brother can't be so weird. Sangofu bitch. You freaks of science, Penny cursed from next door, and then there were footsteps in the corridor. Leonard quickly took a sip of coffee to calm down, but he immediately realized something was wrong. How did Penny know it was us? Did Ron tell the secret? It could also be because of the note I left on the table yesterday about room cleaning suggestions. Sheldon was still choosing breakfast cereal in high spirits, and the door of the apartment was suddenly pushed open by Penny. Did you sneak into my apartment while I was sleeping last night? Penny was in a state of collapse. Leonard hurriedly explained, yes, but we just came to help you clean the room. To be precise, it's to clean the room. Your place is not dirty, Sheldon explained seriously, and he didn't even realize that Penny's anger was about to set the whole room on fire. Penny was completely helpless with these two weirdos. Give me back the room key. I'm very sorry. Leonard handed over the key. Penny roared, do you know how horrible this is? Yes, we discussed it for a long time last night, Leonard defended palely, but it was useless. In my room, when I was sleeping, Penny's roar was suddenly interrupted by Sheldon. And when you snore, I think you may have a sinus infection, but it may also be sleep apnea syndrome. You may need to see an doctor. Then I would like to ask, what kind of doctor can take the shoes out of the ass? Penny approached Sheldon. She swore that if she was not scared by Ron's entire suitcase of weapons and equipment, she would want to stuff her shoes into Sheldon's weird ass now. Sheldon answered seriously, it depends on the depth. Either a proctologist or a surgeon. Leonard finally couldn't bear it anymore and picked up the paper, wrote the word irony and held it up, wishing he could stretch it to Sheldon's face. Sheldon finally reacted and realized what happened. He said oh awkwardly and stood there, at a loss. Oh my god, for the first time, Penny discovered that the gap between people is greater than that between people and dogs. The latter can at least obey human instructions and make various reactions, while the former sometimes can't even communicate with normal language. Maybe there's a Sheldon user manual somewhere, such as Ron's place, and maybe he can have a good exchange with him later. The loss suffered from the younger brother is compensated by the older brother with sex, which seems to be a very cost-effective deal. Leonard hurriedly stopped in front of Penny and hurriedly made up for his image in the eyes of his dream lover. Maybe when you feel less violated, well, I can't think of any other adjectives, then we can have a good talk. Stay away from me. Penny pushed Leonard away and left angrily. Well, this is another way. Leonard looked like a complete submissive. Penny. Wait a minute. Sheldon stood up. I'll state this in advance, because after you leave, we'll definitely discuss whether you're disgusted by us entering your room while you're sleeping, or whether you're also disgusted by the room organization system we've imposed on you. Penny was dumbfounded. She finally realized that no matter how high Sheldon's IQ was, he was just a fool when it came to the ways of the world. When she left, she bumped into Ron, who had come to watch the fun. Keep an eye on your weird brother. Ron shrugged and greeted the weird scientist duo who had just been beaten up by Penny in the morning. Good morning, you two look just like the poor seals I beat with a baseball bat when I was in the Arctic. Do you need me to get you a mirror? No, Leonard replied weakly, then stood up and stood in front of Sheldon. Now, go apologize to Penny. Ha ha ha. Sheldon chuckled and walked past Leonard, continuing to make his cereal. What are you laughing at? Sheldon asked back. Isn't this a new irony? No, even Leonard, who is always a good guy, was a little annoyed at this time, and Ron still did not forget to fan the flames. Leonard, believe me, I am definitely not protecting my brother, but do you really think it would be a good idea to let Sheldon apologize to Penny? Why not? It's obviously his fault. Ron did not answer Leonard's question, but turned his eyes to Sheldon again. My stupid brother, if you go to apologize to Penny, what are you going to say? Why should I, a person with 2 doctoral degrees and a master's degree, apologize to Penny? Seeing Leonard's angry eyes, Sheldon raised his hands helplessly in surrender. Ron, I didn't know you were playing World of Warcraft. Sheldon's eyes lit up. For the first time, he realized that he and his brother, who had always bullied him, actually had a common hobby. Ron spread his hands and said nothing. That was all in his previous life. When he was in college, Ron saved his living expenses and exchanged them for internet fees and World of Warcraft cards, and then wasted a lot of time saving a non-existent Azeroth continent. Thinking about it now, I still miss it a little. But think about it, it seems that the Burning Crusade will be released soon. Maybe I can relive the good times of my college days with the 4 scientists? Leonard's helpless voice came from his hands covering his face. What should I do, Ron? Maybe you can start by writing an apology letter to Penny and asking her out, if you don't plan to kill some monsters to level up first. But you have to wait until the afternoon, because she should be taking a nap now. After all, it was his brother who caused the trouble, and it was a bit inappropriate for him to affect Leonard's love life. Ron began to give Leonard advice. Me? Date Penny. Leonard's eyes widened. Yes, and keep looking in the mirror. Remember this look. Believe me, Penny will fall for you. Ron took out a key from his pocket. Also, if necessary, as compensation for helping me take care of this troublemaker, you can drive my new car, which should be better than your family car. This is the key to the new car that Ron took from the mailbox when Penny came to bother the two scientists. The car was parked in the apartment parking lot, and he didn't even have time to take a look. Along with the key, there was also a check for the amount that just matched the amount on the 1040 form. The genus name is Insangu, the name of the actual controller of the Korean-American gang in Los Angeles. When Leonard saw the key, he suddenly got rid of his loss, pointed at the Transformers logo on the key and asked excitedly, "Is this the Bumblebee from Transformers? We just watched this movie some time ago. And it's not even offline yet. I only know that it might be a yellow Camaro. Maybe you can drive it and take Penny to the movies. How about watching Transformers? I think you will be the focus of the entire cinema." Sheldon also ran to Leonard and snatched the key, holding it under the light to look at it carefully. "Oh my god, this really is the key of Bumblebee in Transformers. Ron, you must let me ride in this car to the comic book store, and I also want to ride this to work." "No, this is a dating prop Ron lent me. I want to drive it on a date with Penny. I declare that it is the property of the Cooper family and should be used first by members of the Cooper family. What do you think, Ron?" Ron shrugged indifferently, but his heart began to churn. It seems that Mr. N from the Korean gang is a very interesting character. He sent someone to deliver the tax owed early in the morning and compensated with a new car with great commemorative significance and a high price. It seems that he is bowing his head in admitting defeat. But in fact, it also expresses a hint. I not only know where you live now, but also know the preferences of your family members. The threat contained in it is self-evident. However, judging from his performance, he should not want to tear his face apart. What the other party is concerned about is not only the IRS's reputation, but also the fighting power shown by Ron single-handedly challenging his entire base. Ron narrowed his eyes, flashing a dangerous light. He hated others threatening him with his family the most. It seems that he may have to knock on this on Shangju and the FBI hiding behind in Shangju. On the other side, the fight between the two noobs finally ended, with Leonard agreeing to take Sheldon to the comic book store in the morning and drive the car to date Penny in the evening. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Fast and Furious End. As Sheldon expected, he successfully became the king of the comic book store, or as Ron said, the king of nerds. But these have nothing to do with Ron. At this moment, he is on his way to Max's house, ready to do something beneficial to his physical and mental health. He ate so many special foods last night. If he doesn't vent the medicinal properties, his body may have problems. So he chose to go to Max's house to make an appointment with Caroline, and this was Caroline's suggestion, because Max had a part-time job in the morning, working as a nanny to take care of children in a rich family in Beverly Hills. I have to say that this feeling of talking about life and ideals with another woman in a woman's bed is quite exciting, especially under the premise that the two girls are girlfriends. "Ron, is my dad okay?" Caroline lay exhausted in Ron's arms, playfully stroking his chest back and forth with her fingertips. "Of course, he's doing well in there. You may not know that there's a golf course in the prison where he's in. I heard that he won a championship in a golf tournament held in the prison." Ron gently nodded at Caroline's head and said, "To be honest, if it weren't for the restrictions on freedom, Ron would have wanted to go in. The treatment in this prison is too good, right? Not only is there a golf course, but there are also a series of supporting facilities such as a bar and a gym." Sometimes Ron even suspected that after he provided ideas to Channing, the old liar could no longer deceive, so he simply chose to retire early by stopping his violence, and even prepared a fairly generous re-entrepreneurship fund for Caroline. Then he hid in a prison protected by government departments to spend his old age, which was perfect. Well, my dad has always been very good at golf, and this is really his specialty. Caroline finally felt relieved after listening to Ron's description of Mr. Channing's prison life. Ron hesitated for a moment, but still chose not to tell her about the money Channing left for Caroline. Not that Ron wanted to embezzle the money. But after Andy escapes, the former warden will definitely fall, and the security prison system may face a major reshuffle. Channing may need the money more than Caroline. Ron slapped Caroline's hips hard. I feel like I've had enough rest. Do you want to come again, my beauty Ron? You are really a tireless beast, but before that, can you help me get something to drink? Ron pointed to the refrigerator. Dr. Pepper will be fine. Unexpectedly, this sentence made Caroline suspicious. Otherwise, how can we say that women's sixth sense is so accurate and terrifying? How do you know there's Dr. Pepper in the refrigerator? And, I noticed from just now, Ron, you seem to be very familiar with this area. Ron's heart trembled. Before he could think of any excuse to perfunctorily get over it, the sudden ringing of the mobile phone saved Ron from the embarrassing situation. It's Toretto. Let me answer the phone first. Ron praised Toretto 10,000 times in his heart. Ron, can you come over? I need you to pick up Andy. Toretto, what happened? You don't sound very good. Ron's joy at having gotten out of a difficult situation was immediately dampened by Toretto's heavy tone. When Toretto said this, he was almost suppressing his anger. His intuition told him that something bad had happened, and sure enough, Toretto roared into the microphone. Jesse is dead. Ron. That Harvard genius. We were just about to go and modify a car together, and suddenly a gunman came out and shot at us with a submachine gun. Jesse died on the spot. Ron, I'm going to kill the Korean. Ron remembered that there seemed to be such a scene in the original movie, but Jesse broke his promise after racing with the Korean gangsters, and then was retaliated by the other party. But all this hasn't happened yet. Has the plot changed? Wait, the gang's controller just paid the tax this morning and gave him a new car, so all this was caused by his intrusion? The Korean gangsters want to silence us. Toretto, calm down. What you should do most now is to protect your family members who are still alive. Take Maya and Letty to a safe place quickly. I'll be there soon. Ron hung up the phone and quickly put on his clothes. I'm sorry, Caroline, something happened to Toretto. I need to go there. Be careful. Caroline bit her lip and finally said nothing. She just hung Ron's gun back on his body and told him. Ron hugged Caroline and kissed her deeply. Don't worry, there is no one in the world who can handle me outside of bed. After saying that, Ron pushed the door open without any hesitation and drove Leonard's car to Toretto's house not far away. 5 minutes. As soon as he arrived at the door, he saw Toretto, who had a solemn face and was driving an old Dodge Challenger modified with a supercharger. Wait, Toretto, you should take me with you. Ron parked the car in front of Toretto's garage and directly opened the door and got into Toretto's car. He saw Remington's shotgun full of bullets placed between the two seats. Toretto, leave the killing to me. I am an agent with law enforcement powers, but if you shoot, you will have to live a life of being wanted and fleeing. Is that what you want? Toretto started the car, stepped on the accelerator, and directly lifted the front of the car up to a large extent. The car started like a rocket launch. Family revenge can only be avenged by family. Okay, then do you know where the gunman ran to? Ron asked as he looked at the two cars that were retreating rapidly. Just now, Hector's people saw them driving east. Judging from the speed, they should not have left the city yet. We can catch up with them. In the city of Los Angeles, I am the king. Toretto's tone was extremely arrogant, but also extremely confident. This was indeed the case. Toretto drove the car, taking advantage of his familiarity with the road, and drove almost in a straight line all the way. It took less than 20 minutes to drive to the highway exit leading out of Los Angeles. Two arrogant motorcycles riding side by side could be seen vaguely in front of him. Toretto's eyes were blazing with fire, but the warning bells of Dang 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 had already sounded on the railway track in front of him. Damn, the train whistle sounded. Stop, dumb. The train is coming. We can wait. Ron hurriedly tried to dissuade Toretto, who had already fallen into madness. However, Toretto was not moved at all, but stepped on the accelerator again. You are a lunatic, Ron cursed, but he was very rational and did not try to grab the steering wheel from him. The speed of the car had already increased. At this time, the speed was conservatively estimated to be more than 200, and the dashboard could no longer accurately display it. A slight operational error would result in the car being destroyed and people being killed. Ron could only choose to believe Toretto, and at the same time, he prayed to God in his heart, "Dear God, although I don't believe in you, please help me because my mother has a good relationship with you. I promise to give you a big pig's head when I go back, dirty. Dirty. Dirty." The train driver also noticed the madman who was trying to break through the blockade, but the braking distance of the train was not comparable to that of the car. He could only brake as much as possible and keep honking the whistle to try to stop the madman. But it was all in vain. Toretto's car was driving faster and faster. Ron even felt a violent shaking of the car due to the excessive engine power, as if it was about to fall apart. Bangcha! The car broke the railing on the railway track. Ron turned his head and the train became bigger and bigger in his sight. He could even see the salad leaves on the train driver's teeth. Bangcha! The car broke the railing on the other side of the railway track, and the locomotive was almost touching Ron's face. Bang! The car fell to the ground from the jump just now, almost brushing past a train without any danger. Ron let out a long breath and said angrily, "I swear, if I drive your car again in the future, I will shit upside down for you to see." But before he could relax, Toretto stepped on the brake lightly, slowed down the car, and shouted, "Help me control the steering wheel." Then he pulled out the shotgun from the back seat without even looking at it and leaned out of the car with most of his body. Ron had no choice but to take over the steering wheel, stretched out a foot from this side, stepped on the accelerator, and took control of the car. This bastard, he definitely did it on purpose. Just to avenge Jesse with his own hands. This action didn't allow him to free his hands to shoot. And Toretto, who was freed from the driving position, hooked his feet on the control console in the seat, and almost all of his body weight was pressed on the door. He held the shotgun and aimed at the two gunmen who were getting closer and closer. The two riders heard the noise from behind and took out their Uzi submachine guns and fired wildly at the rear. Toretto still held his gun and aimed without moving, but the bullets seemed to have eyes and flew around his body. Caca! The gunman's submachine gun finally ran out of bullets, and they immediately threw their guns down without hesitation, twisting the throttle hard and riding forward at full speed. At this time, Ron had already driven the car steadily to a distance of less than 10 meters from the two riders with his superb driving skills. This was the maximum effective killing range of the Remington M870. Bang! Toretto pulled the trigger firmly, and one of the gunmen was hit directly by the powerful bullet, and the huge car directly blasted him off the car. Beautiful, Ron exclaimed loudly. Even if he was shooting on a moving car, he couldn't do better than him. He tried to control the car to drive more steadily and create opportunities for Toretto. Click. Toretto used the pump-action loading device to push the second bullet into the chamber of the gun, and aimed at the other gunman again. This time, the two cars were closer, and he aimed at the head. Bang! With a shot, the helmeted head was blown off, leaving only the unconscious body to control the car and continue to drive forward in a daze. Chapter 29: Transactions and Collusion. Toretto left, because the FBI officially issued a wanted order for Toretto. The charges were murder and truck robbery. Ron knew that the story of Fast and Furious 1 ended here. But this did not prevent Ron from going to Detective Jack to have a good talk. "Ron, I gave you all the information you needed last time. What are you doing here again? You know, you are not welcome here." Jack felt a headache when he saw Ron appear in his office again. "I thought we were friends, Jack." Ron sat down on the reception sofa opposite Jack in a familiar manner, took out a small recorder and put it on the table, and pressed the play button. "I accidentally got a very interesting recording here. Maybe you can listen to it. Your warehouse has been targeted, and the person is a very troublesome person." In the recorder, it was Jack's own voice. He sat up straight in his chair and widened his eyes in surprise. Then he reacted quickly, snatched the recorder, took out the tape and tore the tape inside. Ron looked at all this with a smile, and had no intention of obstructing it. "You still have a lot of copies, right?" Jack finally came to his senses. Ron nodded as a matter of course, and Jack sat back in his comfortable recliner dejectedly. "Tell me what you want, a pardon order." "You know what I want to do with it?" Ron stood up and looked down at Jack on the other side of the desk, and slapped the table. "If it weren't for you and your idiot Korean gangster, my friend Toretto would never have left his hometown. This is impossible. We just issued a wanted order, and the case has been closed. If you cancel the wanted order at this time, where do you put the authority of our FBI? If you have the guts, just post this recording everywhere. Do you think I'm scared?" These senior officials actually all know that the gangs are one of the main sources of our FBI's case funding, and they are also one of the important electoral bases for the mayor. Do you really want to be enemies with all of us? Ron only knew that the gangs might have been paying protection fees to the FBI, but he didn't know that the mayor was also involved. This was not a simple case, but a political event. No matter how powerful the boss behind him is, he can't support him in such a matter, because this will make him stand against a large part of the powerful vote base, which is absolutely impossible for someone who wants to win the presidency. Ron rubbed his brows with a headache and cursed in his heart, "This damn American election system." Jack slowed down his tone. "However, I can cancel our FBI's actual pursuit of him first. You know that this will make your friend much easier. Then I will give you a pardon, but you must promise me that this pardon must wait at least half a year before it can be used, and you'd better think of a reasonable reason for the pardon. The condition is that I want this recording in your hand to disappear forever." Okay, Ron thought about it, and it seemed that there was no better way. This deal could be established. With the ability of Toretto and his gang, without the pursuit of FBI overseas agents, they might live more freely than in China. At worst, we can wait until the 6 months are up and then summon them back with a pardon order. However, if we don't bargain for the price, it would be a bit of a loss. Ron agreed. "Okay, but I want to." Jack's eyes widened. "We are only looking for Toretto. You are asking for too much." "Relax, Jack." Ron first calmed Inspector Jack's emotions. "Have you heard of this person called Anonymous? I think if we join hands to cause him some trouble, you should be happy, right?" Anonymous is the code name of the CIA's HUD in California. Ron discovered through his own intelligence channels that this person was the real mastermind behind Shawshank prison. Now that he has free hands, he can cause him some trouble. Why not? The three major intelligence agencies of the United States, CIA, FBI, and IRS, are basically on the same level, but the forces they represent are not the same, so they have always disliked each other, but they have also restrained each other. In theory, the FBI, because it is affiliated with the Department of Justice, has absolute say in all matters such as amnesty or judicial judgment of criminal cases. Even the other two agencies have to go through the FBI when doing such things. However, the funding is tightly controlled by the IRS, which is affiliated with the Department of Finance. In theory, the IRS can conduct tax investigations on all federal employees, which seems to be the most powerful. However, the actual combat power that can be mobilized basically depends on cooperation with the CIA, so some conveniences have to be ceded to the other party. The Special Operations Force that Ron belongs to was established to get rid of dependence on the CIA. Finally, although the CIA has the strongest combat strength and even develops a variety of side businesses, it does not rely on the funds of the Ministry of Finance, but directly receives funding from the military expenditure of the Pentagon. However, most of their side businesses are illegal businesses that are not presentable. If the FBI is more active in handling cases, the CIA's personnel and funds will suffer huge losses. Therefore, whenever the three major intelligence agencies can trip up each other, they will never show mercy. From another perspective, the three intelligence departments with law enforcement power form another degree of separation of powers. One cannot help but sigh that it is a wonder of the United States. Jack was obviously very interested in this matter. "What do you want to do? I just happen to have a murderer who has been in prison for more than 20 years. He was wrongly accused. The real murderer is now in a prison. With a little trickery, he can clear his name." Ron planned to use Andy's case to catch the CIA off guard and whitewash Andy's identity so that he could work for him. His special operations team still only had him alone, so he planned to add some manpower. Andy, who was smart and proficient in various accounting techniques, was definitely a very good choice. "But what does this have to do with Anonymous?" Jack asked, puzzled. He escaped from Shawshank prison, and during his imprisonment, he was in charge of the financial management of the entire prison, and even helped other senior officials in the prison system to file taxes. "You know what this means, right?" Ron winked meaningfully. Jack was stunned at first, then suddenly stood up and looked through the files of several previous drug cases. When he saw the final places where those criminals were serving their sentences, he immediately realized it. They were all imprisoned in Shawshank. This is definitely not a coincidence. Ron showed his signature devilish smile. "We just need." Chapter 30 Max's Cake Business. After leaving the FBI office, Ron wanted to drive to Toretto's place to have a look. It would be best if he could meet Hector and other pilots who had a good relationship with Toretto and had good skills to talk about the topic of new car modification. As a result, he walked to a restaurant owned by Koreans in Hobbit without knowing it, and he was hungry. However, Ron still wandered outside the restaurant for several circles until he was sure that Caroline was not in the store, and then he walked in. There was only his black-haired Busta Beauty Max in the store, who was being harassed by a group of girls dressed in cowboy clothes. Or it could be said that the harassment was a bit too much, they were just a little too self-righteous. I want a vegetable platter. Instead of beets, I want kale. Instead of a cauliflower, I want some kale. The vegetables should be steamed. Instead of salad dressing, I want lemon juice. Why don't you write it down? Before Max could say anything, Ron interrupted, you eat so much kale. Do you think you are a mule? But I don't think you can do so much work that a mule can do. So I advise you to be kind. Otherwise, the Indian sitting over there will tell you that you will be reincarnated as a mule in your next life, pulling a millstone for the rest of your life, and everyone will call you a bastard. Ron's words were really venomous, but he was just a customer, so it didn't matter. His prominent clothes directly dispelled the plans of several little fairies who came down to earth to continue to be venomous to him. The American people are still quite realistic. When they see someone they can't afford to offend, they will immediately become timid. Ron Max cried out in surprise, but immediately suppressed it and put on a cold face. You know, after I found you missing this morning, there was a stack of cash on the bedside. I thought I had made some great business again. Why are you here again? My big client, how much do you plan to pay this time? Ron immediately heard Max's deep resentment in her self-deprecating jokes, and quickly raised his hands in surrender. Max, I was wrong. I shouldn't have left without saying goodbye, but you know, the nature of my job is very special, and it's normal to disappear for a few days. How are you doing recently? Max, why are you still the only one in this restaurant? Is your lovely Asian boss so stingy that he doesn't want to hire another person to help you? Sometimes women blame you, and all they want is an explanation. No matter how unreasonable the explanation is, women who are blinded by love don't care about that, so those scumbags are rampant, such as Ron. Fortunately, he hired another Barbie doll who can't do anything, but she turned out to be a problem for me. Now she not only lives in my house, but also got a horse as a buy one get one free gift. What do you want to eat? Ron's heart moved. It seemed that Caroline, who was relieved, had already taken Subeo. This horse had become Caroline's pet since Ron met her. It was Caroline's favorite vehicle. Ron's favorite vehicles were Max and Caroline. Ron found a seat and sat down. Anything is fine, as long as you make sure my food has not been touched by the chef who looks like he hasn't taken a shower for several days. Then I suggest you eat the cheese pie. Just take it out of the box and heat it in the microwave. I promise it's absolutely clean. Before Max turned to leave, Ron called her back and read the words on the small blackboard on the bar word by word. Also order the world's sweetest Max homemade cake. I want vanilla flavor. Oh, Max rubbed her forehead. I forgot to wipe this off. Why should I wipe it off? I think it's good. I mean, for your business, it can let more people know you. This is a good start, Ron persuaded. Your tone of voice is exactly the same as that of the blonde Barbie. Max was surprised. I doubt if you have known each other for a long time, so you can say exactly the same thing. Maybe it's just the common views on business between people who graduated from the same business school. I graduated from Harvard Business School. Ron guiltily shifted his eyes away from the huge treasure on Max's chest and talked about something else. You're not going to say that I'm afraid of success, are you? 5 minutes later, Max brought Ron's cheese pie. Do you know what happened to the last blonde Barbie who said that? What happened? As she was talking, she fell into the manure of her champion horse. And it just so happened that there was no water at home today, and the water won't come back until 3 in the afternoon. Haha. Ron couldn't help laughing when he thought about the scene of Caroline falling into horse manure. Then what? Isn't that why she stayed at home and waited for the water to come back to take a shower and didn't come to work? Of course not. She insisted on finding some remote bakery and wanted to sell my cakes there. Listen, is she crazy? After serving the other tables of guests, Max finally had some free time and brought Ron's food over. I don't think she has. Ron tried a bite of the cheese pie. Fortunately, there was no strange taste. Max, listen to me. You can't be a restaurant waiter for the rest of your life, right? Maybe this really is an opportunity, a chance for you to get rid of your current life. Your little cakes are really delicious, not even worse than what I had in the afternoon tea in a 5-star hotel." The delicate girl I picked up said the same thing. Max's expression relaxed a little, and Ron quickly struck while the iron was hot. "Yes, you see, everyone thinks you can succeed. Why not give it a try? If you are willing, I would be very willing to invest in your business as an angel investor. Maybe this will make me a lot of money in the future." "How is that possible? I don't believe it myself." Max still lacked confidence. "Max, you have to believe in my vision. You know I have never missed any of my investments. Do you know Bubba's Shrimp Restaurant? I am one of their shareholders, and a major shareholder. Moreover, I have just become a shareholder of Tesla. Hi, I suddenly thought of a brilliant idea. Maybe I can give you the first big order. What do you think about letting your cake become a lunch snack for Tesla? I am a shareholder, so I can definitely make this suggestion." Ron looked into Max's eyes and said seriously, "Musk may be a scumbag like him, or a well-known big liar in the investment world, but at least he is a pretty good boss. His company has always provided desserts during lunch break. If he can help Max get this order, maybe Max can really take the first step. P.S. Thank you for the reward from Damo Yasu. You are the first book friend to reward besides myself and my friends. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Airstward. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Nankia Okuwakson. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Happy Pet Pig. Thank you for the monthly ticket from A's Spaceship. And thank you for the monthly ticket from Naughty Littlebag 0083. Thank you for your recommendation votes. There are too many people, so I won't list them one by one, otherwise I won't be able to sleep tonight. I would like to especially thank 300 pounds of Li Bai, Shunyong Xiangnan, Xiaorixing's Hilv, U 800,810, and Acorn with a Great Dream. I can see your recommendation votes almost every day. Thank you. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 31 Leonard Love Story. It was just a matter of changing the dessert after dinner. Musk easily agreed to Ron's request, and under Andy's supervision, he and Ron quickly completed the equity transfer. Ron received a total of 8.8% of Tesla's shares. Andy said that if he had been present at the beginning of the negotiation, he could have one more for Ron, but he did not think that a toy-like electric car had the possibility of a great success. A broken car with a range of less than 300 kilometers, Tesla's early models, a simple motor structure, and brake problems is sold at the price of a luxury car. Do you think everyone else is stupid? I strongly suggest that you cash out now and maximize your profits. Otherwise, in my experience, the stock price of this company will only go down, and it will not even make as much money as you sell the technology directly. Andy said so. If Ron did not know the future, he would probably think so. But unfortunately, Ron came from a parallel time and space in the future. He knew deeply that the capital game in the future was very different from Andy's era. The stock price of a company is no longer determined by simple technology and profits. These have become secondary, and telling a good legendary story is the real decisive factor for the stock price. And Ron knows that there is no one in the world who can tell a better story than Musk, the big liar, who can even blame all kinds of product problems on the personal behavior of users. No one else can do this. Ron felt that this guy would be finished sooner or later, but he traveled through time a little too early and didn't have time to see this scene. He could only plan to cash out and leave the market when the stock price was high, and at most, he would cut a few leaks with Musk using Bitcoin and other things. Andy, if you are willing, I can transfer 1% of Tesla's shares to you, on the condition that you will not be paid for working here. Are you willing to accept it? Ron was rarely generous, but Andy looked at him with the eyes of a mental patient and walked away silently. Although I am old now, I am not demented yet. The financial path is smooth, but the official path is not smooth. After Ron reported the problem of increasing the number of people to his big backer Francis, although he received certain financial support and material assistance, and moved the office from his apartment to an office not far from Caltech. But Ron's team is still a blank team with only himself except Andy. Ron didn't want mediocre people, and it was hard to find top talents, so he simply stepped down. Except for occasionally interviewing one or two talents recommended from other departments, he wasted a lot of time between the two sisters who were on the verge of bankruptcy, and playing World of Warcraft with Sheldon's scientist geeks. In Sheldon's apartment, 4 scientists and an IRS agent embarked on a fantasy adventure. Very good, move forward a few steps, get ready gentlemen, the gate of the Dark Temple has arrived. Howard looked solemn. Oh, my God, everyone exclaimed. Taking advantage of the holiday for 4 consecutive days, the 5 people stayed in the house playing games. Just for this moment, Leonard hurried out to stabilize the situation. "Don't panic, keep fighting for 97 hours, just for this moment." As he said this, the eldest brother took out the respirator and took a deep breath of asthma medicine. She was afraid that she would be too excited and suddenly pass out. Rajesh pushed open the door carefully, and Aladdin's passionate voice immediately rang in everyone's headphones. "I have been in prison for 10,000 years and expelled from my hometown. You are seeking your own death." Ron couldn't help but miss his college days in his previous life, but now he has more important things to do, that is to snatch the egg sword before Sheldon. Before the dungeon started, Ron, the scheming boy, had already obtained the position of team leader through various means and obtained the right to distribute weapons, and then Ron raised his notebook and laughed wildly. "Haha, the blade of Asenath is mine." Sheldon closed the computer in annoyance. "I said a long time ago that Ron must not be allowed to be the captain. Look, he always keeps the best equipment for himself." I proposed to initiate a vote of no confidence in Captain Ron. However, Howard and Rajesh were unmoved, and Sheldon started to complain again. Fortunately, at this moment, there was a sudden noise from the apartment opposite, and everyone's attention was refocused on Leonard. "It's Penny. Penny is back." Leonard got up excitedly and prepared to meet her in the corridor. "Don't forget to pick up the letter that the postman accidentally put in your mailbox," Ron reminded helplessly. He was helpless with his dog. While Sheldon was also following him to the door, Howard Rajesh quickly approached Ron. "Ron, you promised to take us to meet your girl." "Of course. In fact, Hector is going to have a party tonight. You can go together and say you are my friend or Toretto's friend." "No, we don't want to attend his party again." Rajesh looked horrified. "What's wrong? Aren't there a lot of girls there?" "You can have fun there," Ron said puzzledly. "Many girls are for you. For us, there's only Lily." Even Howard, who is not picky about taste, showed an expression that was hard to describe. "Even if it's a fat girl, we occasionally want to change our taste, you know." Howard winked at Ron obscenely. "Okay, I promise you guys, I will definitely do what I said, but I'm afraid I can't do it today. I have to go around tonight to gather some information. You know, this is my job. It might be dangerous if I take you with me, and your fighting power is so bad." The wretched duo looked dejected and had to wait for the next opportunity. However, soon, Leonard, who looked even uglier than them, came back. "Leonard, how was your day?" "I'm fine, and Penny is fine too." Leonard fell on the sofa in disappointment, and added, "The guy who kissed Penny was fine too." "Kiss? What kind of kiss? Wet or dry? Did you stick out your tongue?" Howard asked expectantly. "I think you have a serious illness." Ron rolled his eyes at Howard. "Leonard, I think you should continue to ask Penny out and use your ability to pester her." The spark of love rekindled in Leonard's eyes. "Do you think I still have a chance?" "No, I just think that Penny will probably go crazy one day and give up resistance and be with you." Hey, Howard clapped his hands in dissatisfaction, attracting everyone's attention back to himself. Like Ron said, maybe Leonard should start practicing with simpler goals. "How about everyone come with me to meet some girls later?" Chapter 32 Airplane Accident. "Ron, do you want to go have some fun with us?" Howard invited Ron with a lewd look on his face. Have some fun? Ron was a little puzzled. "Didn't you just ask me to introduce you to a girl? How come you have some fun after such a short while?" Howard nodded. "Yes, that's right, we plan to find some women." When he said this, Ron clearly felt that Howard's petite figure was infinitely taller among the 4 scientists, like a giant. There was no way, in the Nerd group, those who have X resources are their gods. Even the big guys in Silicon Valley are no exception. Don't you see how many big guys in Silicon Valley were implicated by Epstein's fall? Even Bill Gates, who has always been a mentor, was not an exception. "Forget it, I won't go. I have to interview a few agents later. Maybe I can find some suitable people today. I wish you have fun." Ron closed his computer and prepared to go out. Hector, Toretto's former sidekick, is now Ron's HR director. He recommends some strange people to interview him every day, but so far, no one has satisfied Ron. This has made Ron more and more impatient recently, because through the intelligence of Hector's gang of speedsters, the blue powder drug has begun to appear on the market again, as if deliberately mocking Ron's incompetence. He needs capable agents, whether they are good at lurking, or have outstanding combat effectiveness, or are proficient in accounting and finance like Andy. He will accept them all. But look at the people who come for the interview. In addition to various gangsters, there are all kinds of abnormal odicus who read a few superhero comics and think that the profession of agent may be cool and want to try it. Mr. Scott, thank you for coming to interview for this job. What are your specialties? Ron is facing a man with a pale face due to long-term lack of sunlight. When asked by Ron, he even stuttered a little, but still plucked up the courage to answer Ron's question. I've read all the comics of Marvel and DC. My dream is to become a member of the Birds of Prey. Is your place such a cool secret agent organization? Ron covered his face. This was another nerd who wanted to come here to try after reading comics. I think you should stay in the comic book store for a while, and then go home. Maybe your mother has already changed the new sheets for you. The nerd left disappointed. Ron breathed a sigh of relief. Calculating the time, he had worked for 4 hours today. Ron planned to have some fun after get off work. He called Leonard, because he was curious about how Howard was having fun over there. Ron, Leonard's voice and noisy music came from the other end of the phone. Leonard, how was your fun over there? It sounds like a party, right? Where did Howard take you to the party? How about I go to see you later? Ron asked with some envy. Although he had 2 confidants with long legs and big breasts to accompany him in turn, Ron didn't mind having a few more. This was not called scum. He just wanted to make some mistakes that all men in the world would make. Party, Leonard wanted to cry but had no tears. You really should come and see. Howard took us to the dance studio to learn Latin dance. Latin dance? Why haven't I thought of this way to pick up girls before? Howard is really a genius. The girls who dance should have good figures, right? Ron exclaimed. Maybe they had really good figures when they were young. There was an unspeakable depression in Leonard's tone. Ron didn't understand. What do you mean, Ron? This is a dance studio in a senior activity center. None of the aunties dancing here are under 50 years old. Leonard loudly accused Howard of heavy taste. Imagining the scene of being pressed down by an aunt who was older than his mother, Ron shuddered with fear. Howard's voice came from the receiver. Leonard, Ms. Wendy has been looking at you and seems to be very interested in you. Do you want to give it a try? Believe me, I have a lot of experience in this kind of thing. Who are you talking to? Ron? Hi. Ron said may you be my own man and hung up the phone. Howard is really not to be underestimated. Ron sat at his desk blankly and came to such a conclusion. He was about to go to his sweetheart Max for some sweet time, but was suddenly attracted by a huge explosion outside the window and ran to the window. Boom! In the sky, 2 large passenger planes collided for some unknown reason, burning into 2 huge fireballs and then falling rapidly due to the inertia after the collision. The scene was spectacular. The wreckage of the planes produced by various explosions fell like rain, and the place where the planes collided was just above Ron's office. FXXK, Ron kicked his chair away and got under his desk. Boom boom, a series of continuous collisions were heard above Ron's office. He looked up and saw a huge fuselage falling down, almost brushing against his window. A bunch of messy things were spilled from another cabin and broke through the glass, rushing straight towards Ron as if they had eyes. $$ and $. Ron uttered another word starting with F that was not suitable for children. He quickly pulled the chair that he had just kicked to the ground and blocked it in front of him like a door, forming a perfect barrier with the desk. Bang! A strong force came from the chair and it was hit. Fortunately, the chair was not penetrated. Then there was another loud bang. Everything finally returned to calm. Ron, who survived the disaster, poked his head out from behind the chair. What just hit the chair was actually a pink teddy bear that was half burned black. I was almost killed by this thing just now. Ron picked up the bear cub and felt a little incredible. With the intuition of an agent, Ron immediately realized that something big was going to happen, and quickly called Jack, who had just cooperated with him on the Andy incident. Hey! Did you see the fireball in the sky? What's going on? Another 911, damn it, I don't know anything. Jack's exasperated voice came from the receiver. Who knows what those terrorists are doing, or what our corn-headed president is doing, and what he said to provoke them. I don't know anything. After saying that, Jack hung up the phone angrily. Chapter 33, Clues to the Accident. My newly renovated office. Ron glanced at the messy office, and a nameless fire rushed to his forehead. He really wanted to take his 12.7mm caliber revolver and make a hole in the head of the bastard who caused the trouble. Although Inspector Jack said that he knew nothing, Ron rushed to the FBI as soon as possible. Because the first investigation right of such incidents was in the hands of the FBI, and all the intelligence would be collected there as soon as possible. Ron, why are you here again? I told you, I know nothing. The busy Jack's office door was pushed open. He was about to curse, but when he saw that it was Ron, he shook his head helplessly. Considering that the two had just fought against the CIA together, he finally swallowed the curse words back. I just want to know who destroyed the office I just renovated. Ron angrily slammed the loaded pistol on Jack's desk, his murderous intent exposed. Then, no matter who he is, I will send that lunatic to see their gods. I'm sorry, although I thought the same as you at first. It seems that this is really not a terrorist attack. Jack took out a still-hot document from the fax machine and covered Ron's pistol. Ron grabbed the document on the table and read it without hesitation. The Federal Aviation Administration said that the plane changed its route under the command of the commander at that time. There was nothing abnormal other than that? Bullshit. This is the most ridiculous reason for an airplane accident I have ever heard. Are you sure that the terrorists didn't hijack the control tower staff and let them order the plane to change its route? I am very sure that in fact, our people have already controlled the aviation control tower. There is nothing abnormal. It seems to be just a low-level mistake made by a staff member. My God, this is really ridiculous. Jack lay down in his chair and sighed. Ron still couldn't believe it. Is it really just like that? Have you investigated the staff member who made the mistake? For example, has there been a large amount of unknown funds injected into the bank account recently, or have any valuable fixed assets suddenly appeared in the names of his children? Oh, right. Pay special attention to whether he has the habit of going to Las Vegas to gamble when he has nothing to do. A gambler will do anything to pay off his gambling debts, and the casino tycoons in Las Vegas have always refused to tell the truth about this matter. We must check every account of theirs to find out how much truth they are telling. Jack looked like he knew you were going to ask this. There was a burst of electronic beeps from the fax machine behind him. Jack took out another document that had just been faxed over without even looking at it, and threw it directly in front of Ron. Take a look. This is the background investigation and simple interrogation statement of the staff who commanded the plane when the accident happened by our people. I knew you would ask these questions, so I asked them to fax a copy as quickly as possible. Ron quickly picked up the newly faxed document and read it, but his brows furrowed deeper and deeper. From the data, this is a simple urban white-collar data, even in Los Angeles, where temptations are everywhere. It seems normal and even a little incredible. This is a simple middle-aged man, highly educated, without bad habits, once served in the U.S. military for a short time, and was hired by the airport after retiring. In addition to a wife who died of illness a long time ago, his family members only have a daughter who has a history of drug abuse. And this daughter also died of drug overdose the day before yesterday, choked to death by her own vomit. But the middle-aged man did not rest, but continued to work. The information also included the thoughts of the investigating agent. He believed that it was very likely that the death of his daughter the day before yesterday affected the middle-aged man's attention, which led to his trance at work and caused this mistake. However, Ron's attention was attracted by the word drug in the information. Jack, can I know what kind of drug this airport worker's daughter took to death? Is it the kind I am investigating? Ron's eyes were sharp. Jack took out an ashtray from under the table and placed it on the table, lighting a cigarette for himself, without any intention of giving up the cigarette. You can ask Hank from the DIA. My people said you've seen him before. Jack took a deep breath and exhaled a cloud of smoke, shrouding himself in a haze. I don't understand. Even if it's the kind of thing you're investigating, what would it be? This has nothing to do with this plane accident. For me, this case is over. It's obvious that the cause of all this is just a poor staff member who lost his daughter, and the black-hearted capitalist who didn't give his employees a holiday even in this situation. Ron shook his head. For you, it may be over, but for me, this matter has just begun. If I have to find a person in charge of my newly renovated new office, it would be the gangster who sold drugs to his daughter. Moreover, there's a very interesting thing here. Did you notice it, Jack? Ron showed a playful expression, and Inspector Jack also became interested. He read the information carefully, especially the part about the daughter of the accident victim, but still couldn't see the reason. What are you talking about? Ron rolled his eyes covertly. With such a limited reasoning ability, how could he become an FBI detective? But in order to have better cooperation in the future, he still patiently explained. Look carefully at his daughter's information. She used to be an addict, but was later forced to go to drug rehabilitation by her father, the person responsible for these accidents. Generally speaking, such people are very likely to relapse, which is not surprising. But she is a veteran, right? When a veteran takes drugs, doesn't he think about getting himself in a correct position before lying down, such as lying on his side? Or find a friend to watch over him? But what does this have to do with the drugs you mentioned? Jack was still puzzled. I think she was completely bewitched by a new, more powerful drug, and the timing of her relapse becomes very interesting. According to the confession from her father, it was just the first wave of this high-purity drug that began to reappear. This only shows that her drug dealer is very powerful and can get the newest and most useful goods on the market. What exactly do you want to say? How did you connect these two unrelated things? We have to rely on evidence when we do things. Of course it's because of this. Ron pulled out a page from the file and showed it to Jack. I've seen this gangster who rented her house. He seems to be called Jesse. If you care enough about the situation at the IRS, you might know that this guy was targeted by Hank before because of the same drug. Chapter 34 Sheldon is fired. After Ron left the FBI, he once again deeply realized the necessity of finding a few reliable people. He secretly made up his mind that when Toretto returned to Los Angeles again, he would pull them into his team. Although he stole, fought, drank, and killed people, Ron knew that he was a good boy, at least, according to the distorted values of the United States. Forget it, it is not certain that such a talent can be controlled under his own hands. It is better to use him as a non-staff member, just like the original Anonymous used Toretto and his gang. However, as a good friend, Ron will definitely not be like Anonymous. Ron returned to his office, which had become a mess due to the plane accident, and asked Andy to clean up the room. He sat aside and continued to work. Don't think that the work of an agent is so cool. In fact, when Ron is working, he spends most of his time dealing with various kinds of information. For example, now, after receiving a call from the big boss behind him, asking him to give a complete report on the incident as quickly as possible, Ron is immersed in a sea of information. In addition to looking at all the control tower monitoring before the plane crash, and various data of the plane's flight, he also needs to look at the bank accounts and tax returns of all relevant personnel. The FBI only asked a rough question, and Ron didn't think that their questioning could get any useful information. As for checking accounts, Ron, who has a background in taxation, and Andy, who has a background in bankers, are obviously better at it. Boss, I think we really should add some helpers. Andy raised his head from the file, stretched his old arms and legs, and complained. Ron didn't even bother to raise his head. He looked at the information in his hand and answered, of course, I know this better than you, but it has to be suitable. Like those idiots or gangsters who came last time, if they had a skill, I would let them stay, but unfortunately, they don't have it. What kind of helper do you want? Maybe my old friends will know someone. You know I came out of Shawshank prison. Everyone there is talented and speaks well. Everyone is talented and speaks well? Why does this sound so familiar? Ron finally raised his head. Since your prison is so full of talented people, why did you come out? Isn't it good to stay in there? I'm different from them. They are real prisoners. Although some of them have spent most of their lives repenting for their sins, most of them not only have no remorse but are even proud of them. Ron was used to this. He once had a very secret contact with a prison because of his work, so he knew very well that in the boring prison, the prisoners had nothing to do, and it was common for them to show off their crimes to each other like medals of honor. Okay, I want someone who is proficient in financial knowledge and analytical skills like you, who can help us analyze intelligence and has a certain combat effectiveness. She won't be a weakling like you who can only stay in the office. It would be even better if this person is a beauty. I guess this beauty would be best if she can take into account all the advantages of your blonde beauty and the brunette with big breasts. She should be a sexy goddess with long legs, big breasts and a perfect face, right? Boss, do you think this is a spy movie? Be realistic. Ron nodded frantically, and Andy spread his hands helplessly. He was simply helpless against this playboy boss. Think about it, if a woman with the above qualities is not a model in the fashion circle or an actress in Hollywood, she must be kept at home by some big boss like a canary. How can she be an agent? Moreover, a woman who has all the good things in the world that God can give her, even if she has a smart mind, probably has no energy to learn financial knowledge and combat skills. After listening to Andy's complaints, Ron habitually just took it as a relaxation and planned to continue working hard, but suddenly he was shocked. Who said that there must be no such woman? In Fast and Furious 4, wasn't the role played by Gal Gadot the same as Andy said before? And she also had an extra driving skill, motorcycle. It's a pity that Ron forgot the name of that character. Not necessarily, maybe one day we will recruit such an elite agent, Ron said like a fool, and Andy rolled his eyes in response, but Ron knew that sooner or later, when the plot of Fast and Furious 4 was triggered, he would say anything to seduce Gal Gadot. After ordering takeout, Ron dragged Andy to work until the early morning. Andy, who is already old, couldn't stand it anymore and fell asleep in the office where the wreckage of the plane was still. Ron took a short rest and dragged his tired body back to the apartment, but heard an extremely kind and familiar voice coming from the apartment next door. "Mary? Why are you here?" In the living room of the apartment, in addition to the foursome and Penny, there was another woman, Ron and Sheldon's mother, Mary Cooper. After the intimate hug, Ron complained, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming to Los Angeles in advance, so that I could pick you up at the airport and take you around here? You must be bored staying in a place like Texas every day." "No, Ron. When your father's team played away games before, I followed him everywhere, including Los Angeles. Your father often said that if he could lead the Texans, he would beat the weak chickens here." Speaking of this, Ron also asked with concern, "Is George in good health? Have you continued to monitor his diet as I said? You know your dad. He will secretly eat a lot of greasy food if he is not careful." This may be the biggest change that Ron's arrival has brought to the world. His father, George Sr., did not die young from a heart disease because Ron monitored his diet since he was a child and exercised together. Of course, when I came out, I specifically told Mimixie to continue to supervise him. Ms. Mary stared at Ron with her beautiful eyes that were full of years but still bright. "It was you who disappointed me. When you came to Los Angeles, I told you to take care of Sheldon. He is your younger brother. What I most want to see is that you brothers help each other, but what about now?" Ron spread his hands. "He is still alive and well now. God is my witness. After the accident a few days ago, I called him to confirm his safety as soon as possible." "That's not what I meant," Mary said angrily. "Did you know that Sheldon was fired by the school? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 35 Border Murders. Sheldon was fired. Ron turned his head to the other scientists. "So is there a grand celebration party at your school tonight?" Of course Howard nodded. "Ron," Mary glared at her second son in dissatisfaction, "I don't remember teaching you to treat your brother like this." Ron waved his hand. "Don't be angry, Mom. I'll go to their school and put my revolver in their principal's mouth and ask him to rehire Sheldon. I just want to know, what is his reason this time?" Leonard whispered. "Because you publicly ridiculed the new principal at the welcome party for the new principal." "I knew it." Ron covered his face. "Sheldon, this child, has been cute since he was a child. He is the treasure of all the elders. Unfortunately, he has a mouth that is extremely poisonous and he doesn't know it." Ron can even imagine the scene at that time. How embarrassed the principal was in Sheldon's sarcastic sarcasm or sarcasm. But in his opinion, firing Sheldon was just a momentary intention. Sheldon is a multi-excellent scientific research talent. No principal can fail to see it. If he really doesn't understand, he doesn't deserve to be the principal. Ron felt that if he did nothing but wait for Sheldon to continue to make trouble, he would be invited back by the president sooner or later. After all, such a genius-level researcher was also a sought-after resource for all universities. If Ron remembered correctly, Caltech had invited Sheldon to come with relatively favorable conditions. Of course, it was just a thought, and Ron didn't want to tell Mary and let her scold him again. "Ron, that's too violent. This isn't Texas. I think it's better to use a more reasonable approach. Do you think I need to talk to his principal?" Mary thought about it and proposed her idea. Ron didn't care at first, but suddenly he got a start and stopped her. "No. Mom, I think I should talk to Sheldon's principal. If it doesn't work, I have some connections at MIT. If Sheldon wants to do research there, I can contact him." It's not that Ron suddenly stopped being busy, but he remembered that in the original book, Mary and Sheldon's principal seemed to have something going on, although that was after George died and she was widowed for many years, and now George is alive and well. But Ron, based on the principle of less trouble, decided to do it himself. He didn't want his father, who is a coach in Texas, to have a green head. MIT? Tisk. Sheldon curled his lips in disdain. What's the difference between that and a technical school? Howard's face immediately fell, because he graduated from MIT, and he was the only one in this group of friends who didn't have a doctorate degree, which seemed to confirm Sheldon's view that MIT was just a technical school. Ron patted Howard on the back to comfort him. Okay, then I'll go talk to your principal, but the premise is that Sheldon must apologize. Ron spread his hands helplessly, indicating that he had no other choice. Impossible. I would rather do research at home than bow to that vulgar person. Perhaps because Mary was here to rely on, Sheldon's resistance was extremely fierce. Well, my great genius, what research have you done at home these days? Scrambled eggs, glow-in-the-dark fish, glow-in-the-dark tampons, and weaving. Sheldon counted his recent research on his fingers. Although there were no results, Ron was shocked. The luminous fish is okay, but can you tell me what the luminous tampons are used for? Are you afraid that girls can't see whether tampons are inserted at night and buckle them incorrectly? Ron was speechless about his weird brother who had new ideas every day. If it weren't for their blood relationship, he would have wanted to shove a gun into Sheldon's back and let the bullets shoot out of his smart head. Ron suppressed his anger and ignored Sheldon. He turned to Mary and said, Mom, you know Sheldon's situation. The school will not expel him for no reason. In fact, we all know the reason. If Sheldon does not apologize, he will not be able to return to school. And we all know that he is wrong. Ron said it firmly. No matter how much Mary doted on Sheldon, she was also a reasonable woman. She sighed and said, then do as you said. Sheldon will go with you to apologize tomorrow. I will visit Mr. Tosey's house and see the child that your father praised so much. Mom, Sheldon was anxious. Sheldon, Mary said in a very stern tone, you must apologize to your brother tomorrow. Otherwise, I will punish you with confinement until I tell you to come out. Sheldon finally stopped. The matter was resolved, and then it was time for a happy breakfast. Ron had a hearty breakfast and took the time to go back to his room to catch up on his sleep until noon, and then he set off again with his tired body. Dia, Hank's team is meeting to discuss the case. There's been some activity in El Paso recently. The Border Patrol encountered a multiple homicide. A truck was set on fire and filled with bodies. The truck compartment became an oven. You can never imagine how disgusting that scene was. The Border Patrol has been playing hide and seek with these smugglers for several years, but this time, they were attacked as soon as they came over. They were attacked severely. I'm talking about a driver and 9 illegal immigrants. There was no sign of a gunman. There were more than just people in this car. Hank was speaking, and an assistant below asked, so what are we looking for? Meth? Cocaine? Hank paced back and forth. Neither. They don't look like they are transporting drugs. Then why did the Border Patrol kick this case to us? The assistant asked, puzzled. No, they didn't kick it to us. I wanted to come here on my own. Hank suddenly turned around and said to everyone, I think this is the work of the top brass of the cartel, maybe the judge of this group. The question is, how could such atrocities occur in our demilitarized zone? I think they are blocking the news, or blocking the road, or one of the Mexicans who entered the country knew something he shouldn't know, so he was silenced. Ron pushed open the door and walked in swaggeringly. By the way, he took the cup that other police officer Jund handed to Hank and drank the water in the cup. Sorry to have listened at the door for so long, but there was no embarrassment on Ron's face. Chapter 36 New Friend Hank. Okay, today's meeting is over. Hank drove away his police officers, poured himself a glass of water, drank it in one gulp, and then refilled it, and sat down at a small table. What are you doing here again? I have already provided you with all the clues I could provide before. Excuse me, your subordinates don't seem to be very convinced by you. Ron didn't care about Hank's helpless attitude at all, but spoke with Sheldon's signature venomous tongue. From what I know, it may be because of your desertion from the Mexican border that caused the decline in your prestige. What do you think? No. That's not desertion. I just want to finish the case here before reporting over there, Hank retorted loudly, and through the blinds of the window, he could see the police officers watching and eavesdropping outside. The chemical genius who made the blue powder is still at large. I must catch him before I can report over there, but how long has it been since you last saw it? 20 days? Or 30 days? Ron showed a sarcastic and playful smile on his face, which made Hank even more angry. 29 days. So what? I don't think the idiot I shot was capable of making such advanced stuff. If he had this ability, he would have made a fortune long ago, Hank shouted loudly, seemingly talking to Ron, but in fact, he was talking more to those who doubted him outside. Ron finally put away all his playfulness and shook a bag of blue powder in front of Hank. Congratulations, you guessed it right. Look at this. This is not my previous inventory, but a new thing I bought from some channels that I don't want to disclose. I have tested it, and the purity is exactly the same as the original one, or even better. Maybe this genius's technology has improved again. Sometimes I think that if I leave him alone, maybe one day he can really make it 100%. This Hank looked at the powder carefully in the sunlight, and his body couldn't help shaking with excitement. When everyone was laughing at him for being a coward, someone finally believed his judgment and produced evidence to prove that he was just a responsible and good policeman, not a coward who is afraid of going to the battlefield. Can you tell me where you got it? Ron shrugged. You may not believe it, but I didn't buy it locally, but my friend told me that there was a crazy new thing next door, and sent me a sample. Then I found out that this thing has been here for a long time. Another state, Hank murmured, his tone even a little lost. Are you saying that this genius has run away to another place? No, I guess he is still here, but he has a better sales channel, maybe a great sales team. Not only the next state, our intelligence network has found that several states across the United States have the same thing. I believe you must have shipped it out from here, so, are you willing for me to join your investigation? A joint investigation between the IRS and your DIA, and I am happy to hand over the final criminal to you for handling, of course, provided that he pays all the taxes he should pay. At this point, Ron licked his lips excitedly. If 30% of the tax is used as a bonus, that would be a lot of money, enough to add some new things to his arsenal. Hank was both excited and conflicted about Ron's suggestion. He was excited because with Ron's strong participation, the investigation of the case might be much better. But he was conflicted because, according to the IRS's usual nature, it was very likely that Ron would secretly reach an agreement with the criminal after discovering him, and then only collect taxes without doing any work. The IRS had done this before. But now Hank needed support, so he could only reach out to Ron. Okay, I promise you, but all our information must be shared, and no private collection is allowed. Hank squeezed Ron's hand heavily, but the latter was completely unmoved. With this little power, it was far inferior to Dorito, and it was still not enough in Ron's eyes. Of course Ron readily promised. In fact, I have made some other discoveries in the plane accident before, and I think it should be very useful to you. Ron briefly explained to Hank the relapse of the daughter of the person responsible for the plane accident, especially through the comparison of information. He found that the new tenant of the daughter's house, although the name was different, looked exactly like Jesse, who was summoned by Hank before. This is definitely the same person. The breakthrough lies in this guy. The two smiled at each other. Hank sincerely invited him. Hey, your name is Ron, right? I know there is a very good bar nearby. Do you want to go for a drink and chat? Drinking is the most direct way for two men to enhance their friendship. Ron readily agreed. Half an hour later, the two sat at the bar of a small bar, each with a large glass of fresh beer in front of them. Ron was a little disappointed. He thought Jack would take him to the kind of bar with beautiful waitresses to flirt with each other, but he didn't expect that the bar Hank brought him to had no beautiful waitresses, not even a woman. It was all men. This is a beer bar that is popular with real men. The customers are mainly middle-aged men. 9 out of 10 are bald like Hank, and they have protruding bellies. Ron feels that he is out of place here. I guess you must have a grudge against me, so you brought me to a place like this. Ron drank a big sip of beer depressedly. Man, I'm a married man, I'm not into hunting for women. Hank laughed. You can't find such a messy place, right? Ron looked around and felt that it was not much better than the restaurant where Max and the others worked, and it was even more chaotic. Ron had a bold guess. Do you want to? Yes, Hank signaled Ron to look at the two big men in the corner. Believe it or not, those two men definitely have stuff. Ron looked back and saw one of them slip something from under the table to another, and the other person at the table immediately handed him a handful of change, which he quickly put into his pocket. An illegal transaction was completed under the eyes of the two detectives. In a place like this, I wouldn't be surprised even if the bartender had stuff on him. Ron was no stranger to this. He had seen this kind of scene many times at the racing gang party with Toretto. So, what are you going to do? Arrest him on the spot? Do you think this will work? We all know that they are just small minions who know nothing. Chapter 37 Bar Fight. I'm going to the bathroom first. Hank stood up, but Ron grabbed him, because he felt that Hank's expression was a little bit wrong from the beginning. I think your expression looks a little bit wrong, like you are afraid of something. Don't tell me you are having diarrhea and afraid of pooping in your pants. I will let you go immediately. Ron deliberately pinched his nose in disgust, but Hank didn't mention going to the bathroom after being pulled by him, and sat back in his seat again. You're right, maybe I'm really scared. You may have heard that I actually stayed at the border for a few days before, and you definitely can't remember what I saw there. In order not to alert the target, Hank's voice was a little low, and it sounded more like a roar, as if he wanted to shout out all the shocks he had received in these days, but the feeling of suppressing it in his chest. Ron put his hand on Hank's arm, and it can be seen that this middle-aged man is a real man. Although I don't know, I can roughly guess that drug dealers have always been the most brutal criminals among all the criminals I have come into contact with. Even if they have paid all the taxes and there is no more money to be made from them, I will find a way to get rid of them. Such people are just a waste of air if they stay in the world. As a time traveler who grew up under the red flag in his previous life, and a three-good youth who received superior socialist education, Ron hated drugs. When he was in school, even though many classmates had tried marijuana, which was said to be less harmful than cigarettes, Ron never touched it, because he knew that once you start anything, you will get tired of it one day and want to seek something more exciting. On that day, becoming a drug addict is inevitable. No. You don't know what I've been through? Hank was still a little excited. Have you ever seen the scene of the informant's head being cut off and placed on the turtle shell? You haven't. You have never seen the bomb hidden under the turtle blow up your colleague who was just chatting and laughing with you into pieces, and you can't even put them together. How do you know I haven't seen it? Ron asked sarcastically. Or do you think that my title as the first agent of the IRS is obtained by flattering? I even sneaked into Guzman's drug factory. Guess what kind of damn things I saw there? Those damn drug dealers should go to hell. At this point, Ron's expression was a little scary. Hank didn't even dare to look him in the face, but because Ron still relied on the advantage of his long arms to hold Hank's head tightly and look at him. But so what? It just reminds me that I still have a lot of work to do. Do I have to kneel down and beg them not to sell those things? Ron squeezed out the words word by word from his teeth. So, Ron pressed Hank's head and looked at the two big men who had just completed the drug deal, and whispered in his ear, if you don't want me to look down on you, let's catch these two bastards and ask them where they got the drugs from. After that, Ron let go of Hank's head, drank the beer in his glass, and walked towards the two people's seats with an expression of I'm looking for trouble. Hank lowered his head and was stunned at first, but immediately drank his own beer and followed him. Stand up, what do you think is wrong with us? Bitch, the two big men's interest in drinking was interrupted. They stood up very unhappily and showed off their bulging muscles. They didn't mind giving this so-called business elite who came to the bar in a suit a little color. Bah. I'm unhappy as long as you breathe. It feels like the air here is polluted. Ron loosened the top two buttons of his shirt and spit directly on the face of the bald big man who was as tall as him. Really, he has no skills. He is just a little thug who can't do anything. He also imitated Toretto to cut a big bald head. Who is he trying to scare? Ron hated this kind of people the most. The sturdy man was immediately enraged and punched Ron's handsome face, but Ron, who was well prepared, caught it with a light block. He even had time to kick the other sturdy man hard in the balls. The sturdy man screamed, bent his waist like a shrimp, and fell down holding his key parts. The sturdy man who was facing Ron quickly realized that this was a tough guy. When he wanted to take back the fist that Ron had blocked, he found that no matter how hard he tried, his fist did not move in Ron's hand. He was panicked. He had never met a person with such great strength. PFFT. Ron spat on the sturdy man's face again. His expression was arrogant, but in the eyes of the sturdy man, he deserved a beating. Is that all the strength you have? Did you use up all the strength when you were fucking your dog at home? What a poor guy. Ron's tone was extremely sympathetic, and it was unclear whether he was sympathizing with the sturdy man or sympathizing with the sturdy man's dog who was not satisfied. Fuck. Bitch, you die. Unable to retract his hand, the sturdy man was angered by Ron's words again, and simply swung the other big hand that Ron didn't control into a fist, and smashed it into Ron's handsome face again, determined to beat this pretty boy with foul mouth to pieces. Ron continued to put on a mocking smile, as if he didn't see the sturdy man's fist at all, and Hank was so scared that he shouted "Be careful!" in his heart, but before he could say anything, Ron's hand holding the sturdy man's fist twisted somehow, and the sturdy body of the sturdy man immediately fell to the ground uncontrollably. Hank's original reminder turned into an exclamation of "beautiful" at Ron's fighting ability, but his exclamation soon turned into worry. Because he saw that the big man who had just been kicked in the balls by Ron stood up again, picked up a beer bottle from another table and looked at Ron with a fierce look. "Be careful," Hank shouted, and rushed towards the big man who raised the bottle without saying anything, but when he was halfway there was a bang, and a glass ashtray exploded on the big man's face. Plop! The big man fell straight down, leaving Hank empty-handed. Ron stood up and kicked the big man who had just twisted his body in the stomach. The big man bent like a shrimp, and then he stepped hard on the stomach of the sneak attacker, and the big man who had just fainted was awakened by the pain. "You little brat. You're getting so good. I'll let you sneak attack. I'll let you sneak attack." Ron stomped on Hank every time he cursed. He stomped on him 7 or 8 times before he finally calmed down and looked back at Hank. "I'm sorry, I took your share. You won't blame me, will you?" Chapter 38 New Subordinates. "No. Of course not." Hank shook his head quickly. He was deeply shocked by Ron's strong fighting ability. At this time, Hank finally reacted. Ron seemed to have mentioned an extraordinary name just now. What was it? Guzman? Hank was shocked. Could this guy in front of him also participate in the operation to capture Guzman? The more Hank thought about it, the more he felt that it was very possible, but now was obviously not the time to ask this. "So, what should we do now?" Hank saw several other big men who were drinking around him stood up, put their hands on their waists, and looked here with unfriendly expressions. Maybe they are in the same group. Bang! IRS is doing business. "If you don't want to die, be obedient." Ron had a pistol in his hand in an instant as if by magic. He shot a bottle on the bar and shattered it with one shot. Fragments and wine splashed everywhere. Several strong men who were originally planning to take action immediately became honest. Ron nodded with satisfaction. "Yes, this is a good boy of daddy. Come on, babies, put all your toys on the table. It's better not to do anything, otherwise I might get nervous, and my gun will go off when I get nervous. I swear, I don't have any idea of violent law enforcement." Really, it would have been better if Ron didn't say it. Once he said it, several big men took out various types of guns from their bodies and put them on the table faster, fearing that if they were slow, Ron's pistol would go off and shoot them in the head. In this regard, Hank could only give a thumbs up, with a big admiration written on his face. Hank's original intention of asking Ron to come here was partly to investigate the case, but more importantly, he wanted to use the gangsters here to practice his courage that had been scared at the border. Now, although his main plan failed, it seems that his courage that was a little scared has also been cured. With such a powerful colleague fighting side by side with him, Hank really doesn't know what else to be afraid of. If there is something to be afraid of, it should be the drug trafficking groups. Call someone, tell your men to take them back for a thorough interrogation, especially the supply channels of the upstream companies. Look at how unlucky these idiots are. They are not high-end talents capable of making drugs. Boy, what are you looking at? I'm talking about you. Ron cursed and pointed the muzzle of his gun at a big man who was staring at him unconvinced. "I ask you, do you know what potassium permanganate can produce when heated?" The big man squatting on the ground raised his head with a confused look on his face. "What is potassium permanganate? You must be in a public middle school, right?" This damn happy education. Ron swore that when he had a child, he would take him back to Huaksha to go to school, so that he would not become a waste under this happy education. He looks like he has taken hormones, but in fact, his brain is full of farmyard manure. Hank came back after the call. "Our people will be here in 10 minutes, what else do you want to do next?" He didn't realize that the tone of his voice was completely that of a subordinate talking to a superior. From the beginning, he had been following Ron's orders. Ron's performance had conquered him unconsciously. "Everything is up to you from now on." Ron handed the pistol to Hank casually. "I also have to take my careless brother to apologize to their principal. I promised my mother." After that, Ron swaggered away as if nothing had happened. Hank smiled bitterly in his heart. This guy really gave him a difficult problem. How can he take care of so many people by himself? Seeing the evil star leave, the big men who had originally calmed down signaled to each other with their eyes, and there was a tendency to be ready to move. Hank immediately knocked out the front teeth of the big man closest to him with the butt of the gun without hesitation, and he was bleeding. He glared at Hank viciously. But Hank was completely unmoved. "Hey, don't think that I'm easy to bully just because that guy's gone. Let me tell you, I'm a detective from the DEA. I killed the too cool who was very prominent some time ago. I welcome you to be the next one, provided that you think you are qualified. As a veteran who has been dealing with various drug dealers for a long time, no one knows the nature of these drug dealers better than Hank. Civilized law enforcement is all empty talk. If you really believe in that, you will be eaten up by these scumbags in minutes. Only by being more ruthless than them can you subdue them." Ron, who was secretly observing at the door, nodded with satisfaction at Hank's performance. At first, Ron looked down on Hank because of his fat body, but seeing his previous record of killing Tuku and the means of subduing these guys, he was not a pedantic person. Maybe he could poach him and recruit him? But these are things that need to be considered in the future. Now he's hungry and plans to go home to eat a loving meal made by his mother. In the apartment, Sheldon still locked himself in the room angrily. Leonard shouted at the room, "Sheldon, your mother made lunch. I'm not hungry." Sheldon's voice came from the room. Mary beckoned Leonard back to the dining table. "Leonard, don't worry about it. He is very stubborn. He will stay in the room until he is satisfied." Penny complained, "This doesn't seem to be a bad thing. I tell you, I love that kid very much, but he is really hard to get along with." Mary looked at Penny helplessly, without any anger. She knew too well what kind of character her son was. Mary turned her head and faced Rajesh, who had been silent all the time. "I made some chicken. I hope you don't treat it as a sacred animal there." Rajesh suffered 10,000 points of critical damage. Fortunately, Ron came home in time to ease his embarrassment. "Mom, in India, only cows are sacred animals. To be precise, only the local humped cattle in India are sacred. It's like racial discrimination among animals. Other cows are just ordinary. In fact, India is one of the largest beef exporters in the world." Howard came over and high-fived Ron skillfully. "Hey, men, why are you talking more and more like Sheldon?" Ron shrugged. "There's no way. The chatterbox is not here. Someone has to take the role of popular science. If you don't mind, maybe we can take shifts. It doesn't matter whether the idiot comes out of his stupid room or not. Anyway, anyone can replace him." "Ron, don't talk about your brother like that." Mary scolded in a stern tone, but before she finished half of her words, Sheldon came out of the room in a rage. Like a big rooster whose harem was robbed, he glared at Ron angrily. "I am the smartest scientist in this room, a scientist destined to win the Nobel Prize. I can't be replaced by anyone." Ron completely ignored Sheldon's angry eyes and looked at Mary with a slight smile. It's as if to say, "Look, even though you are a mother, I am the one who knows Sheldon best." Chapter 39. Hank is attacked. Sure enough, Ron caught Sheldon's weakness at the first move, that is, his arrogance that he thinks he's the most unique and irreplaceable. This can be seen from what he later told Howard about the importance of hawking to him. Sheldon believes that among all living scientists, no one can match his intelligence and talent except Hawking. "Ron, I'm talking to you," Sheldon shouted unhappily when Ron ignored him. "But I don't want to talk to you. I just want to eat the food my mother cooks now." Ron arrogantly picked up a mat woven by Sheldon and put it under the dinner plate and sat back on the sofa, which was Sheldon's special seat. Mary saw that Ron's method was effective, so she simply watched with interest. "I am not someone who can be replaced by anyone. My research is of epoch-making significance in physics." "Physics, do you understand?" Sheldon argued loudly with Ron. "If my death shot launcher was there, you would have died long ago. Please, don't be funny. Your thing can't even stop the neighbor's dog." Ron took a big bite of the thick crust pie made by Mary and hummed with satisfaction. "Sheldon, I don't understand physics, but I do understand that if you don't apologize, you will lose your current job and won't be able to do your favorite physics research. Is this really what you want? My research can be done anywhere. I can continue my research at home by using a board to check the calculations." Sheldon was still making excuses, but his confidence was obviously not that strong. It was obvious that he was bullying Ron for not understanding theoretical physics research, but unfortunately, Ron didn't understand, but someone here did. "Sheldon, don't be childish. You know that you need me to verify your theories at any time." Leonard stood up, and at this moment he was extremely tall in Sheldon's eyes. "That's enough, cheer up, you are a physicist, you should do experiments in school, not hide at home." Sheldon finally lowered his noble head. Mary put the tableware on Sheldon's hand at the right time, and the plate was his favorite food. After dinner, go with your brother and apologize? Sheldon stood there in silence. Sheldon, why don't you eat yet? Do you really have to ask me to treat you? Ron was a little impatient. You took my seat, Sheldon said with his head down. Ron reluctantly picked up his plate and stood up. He had almost finished eating anyway, so Sheldon quickly sat back in his seat. Half an hour later, Ron drove Sheldon, and Leonard's car followed behind, and they arrived at Caltech one after another. Do you want me to go to the principal's office with you later? Leonard asked kindly. Don't worry, I think I can handle it. If it doesn't work, I can call the school director. Ron said that he had no problem at all. In fact, the matter was very simple to handle, or it could be said that the principal was waiting for Sheldon to apologize. Everything went very smoothly. On the other hand, Hank's side was not smooth. After bringing several gangsters who might be involved in drugs back to the police station, Hank not only did not receive any praise, but was called to the office by his immediate superior and yelled at. Hank, how many times have I told you that this case is over? I'll ask you one last time, when are you going back to the border? Hank shook his head. Boss, this case is really not that simple. I mean, this case is far from being over so soon. Give me some more time. When I get to the bottom of this case, I promise to go back to the border immediately. Well, Hank's boss stood up. I declare that from now on, you are suspended from work without pay for disobeying orders. Now hand in your badge and pistol, and you can go until you figure out what to do and come back. Yes, sir. Hank nodded disappointedly, took out his badge and pistol from his arms and put them on the table, took a longing look at the things that once brought him glory, and left his boss' office in a daze. Everything was like sleepwalking. Hank didn't even know how he got back to his car, and he couldn't even remember when there was a bouquet of flowers in his hand. This should be intended for his wife. Just as Hank was about to start the car, his cell phone suddenly rang. It turned out to be a phone number with garbled numbers. Out of curiosity, he still pressed the answer button. Little did he know that this action just saved his life. Hank Schroeder, listen carefully. 2 people are coming to kill you. A slightly old voice came from the receiver. What did you say? Say it again. Hank suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. The other party ignored Hank's question and continued, they are walking towards your car. You have 1 minute to escape. Is this probably a harassing call? I don't know what tricks you are playing. Get out of the way. Who are you? If it weren't for his always cautious character, Hank would have been ready to hang up the phone. They are coming. After saying this, the other party hung up the phone quickly without waiting for Hank to say anything else, and Hank called back. But how could a phone number composed of garbled numbers be dialed? Hank lowered his body a little nervously. While finding Ron's number and calling it, he observed the surroundings through the 3 rearview mirrors, and it was better to believe it than not. A middle-aged woman who just finished shopping at the supermarket? Obviously, this can't be the killer. A middle-aged man with a hunched body? It doesn't look like it, but it's possible. Hank nervously reached his hand to his waist, wanting to touch his pistol, but he touched nothing. His pistol had just been handed in. Hello? Hank, what do you want to talk to me about? How is the interrogation going? I'm almost there. Do you want to find a place to continue to talk about the results of the interrogation? Ron's voice in the receiver made Hank feel a little relieved. Listen, I just received a call. There's a killer who is going to kill me. Wait for me, I'll be there soon. Try to stay alive before I get here, Ron said and hung up the phone. At this time, Hank finally saw 2 bald figures through the windshield of a car in front. They were not friendly. Could they be the killers predicted in the mysterious phone call? At this time, he no longer cared about who the mysterious phone call came from or what the purpose of saving him was, because he could clearly see from the reflection that the 2 bald men who were originally walking side by side had separated. One on the left and one on the right, they were outflanking each other. Hank saw that the situation was not good, so he immediately started the car and planned to find a chance to run out and meet up with Ron, but he didn't expect that a bald man suddenly flashed out from behind the car and shot Hank in the car. Chapter 40, Parking Lot Fight. Bang! 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 The killer fired 3 shots in a row, but none of them hit him. Hank dodged the shot by lying on the car seat with experience. At the same time, Hank quickly put the car into reverse gear without showing his head, and stepped on the accelerator without even looking. The engine roared violently and fell backwards at a high speed. Seeing that the situation was not good, the killer rolled on the ground to avoid it, but Hank's car crashed heavily into the car behind. The killer stood up, patted the dust off his body, raised his gun again, and fired several shots at Hank's car door. If Hank's pistol was still there at this time, he would definitely have a way to fight back and would never fall into such a passive situation. However, just as the killer was attacking Hank fearlessly, an eye-catching Chevrolet Camaro drove into the parking lot at a high speed, without any intention of slowing down, and directly crashed into the bald killer who was shooting. Boom! The bald killer was directly hit by Ron's car, and he didn't stop until he hit another car. Everything happened so fast that he didn't even have time to turn around and shoot at Ron, and he was caught between the front of Ron's car and the door of another SUV. Bang! 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 Before Ron could deal with the bald killer who was about to be hit to death, the other side of the car was shot again. He saw another bald man walking out of the corner of the parking lot. He looked very similar to the one he hit, probably a twin or something. Ron opened the car door directly and took out the pistol from the door. When the bald killer's bullets were emptied with a click, Ron flashed out from the back of the car and fired at the bald gunman. Bang bang! Ron's Glock pistol emptied all the bullets in the magazine at once, but it only made the bald killer's body shake without any effect, and there was not even a drop of blood. FK. It's a bulletproof vest. Damn 9mm bullets. The bald killer showed a grim smile and turned the gun to point at Ron. Ron hurriedly pointed the gun at the bald killer's shiny head. FKU, it was a pity that I didn't bring my large caliber Smith & Wesson with me today. I should have pointed it at your big head like a light bulb. But it was too late to say anything at this time. The bald killer pulled the trigger, and Ron dodged again and hid behind the car to avoid a row of bullets. The bullets only made a burst of sparks on Ron's new car, and he felt painful to see it. This is my new car. You wait. In order to prevent his new car from being scrapped, Ron dodged several times under the bald killer's shooting and hid behind a tall SUV. Hank, who got a chance to breathe, finally got out of the car quietly, touched the killer who was killed by Ron, picked up his gun, and prepared to support Ron. After the bald killer determined Ron's position, he stopped shooting and walked calmly towards the tall SUV parked with other cars. However, when he went around the back of the car, there was nothing behind it. Ron had already disappeared. Where did he go? The bald killer had doubts in his mind, but before he could figure out the reason, bang, the bald killer felt a pain in his waist. It turned out that Hank was shooting at him from another angle. Although the bullet was blocked by the bulletproof vest, the huge kinetic energy still made the muscles covered by the bulletproof vest hurt. The killer turned around and shot. Hank quickly shrank his head, and the bullet almost grazed his scalp. At this time, some people may ask, why didn't the two shoot at the head at the beginning? This is like a shooting game. When entering the station, everyone's first subconscious reaction is to pursue killing, no matter where, as long as they hit it. This is even more true in reality. Real people are different from games. Few people can be like in games. They can be shot several times and still jump around like nothing happened. So in general, as long as you hit the body, it's fine. All the first shots in actual shooting exercises are aimed at hitting the body. Especially in close combat, but when the distance is not close enough, the accuracy of the pistol is really not enough to hit wherever you point it. While the bald killer was busy suppressing Hank, Ron came out from under the tall off-road vehicle like a magic trick. Before the bald killer could react, a handful of red dust was thrown at his head. Ahem. HU, there are 3 treasures in fighting in the underworld: folding stools, bricks, and quicklime. And Ron's is the max version. He specially mixed quicklime, chili powder, pepper and other seasonings to enhance the version. The bald killer coughed violently, his eyes were in pain and tears flowed. Tears and snot mixed into a ball and flowed into his mouth and were choked out. He instantly lost his combat power and could only rely on his original impression to randomly shoot at the possible position of Ron. After Ron finished sprinkling the chili powder, he had already flashed behind the killer and started to circle around him. None of the bald killer's bullets hit him. Kada! With a crisp sound, the bullets in the pistol were finally emptied again, and now it was finally Ron's turn. At this time, the bald killer happened to have his back to Ron, coughing, while groping for the magazine on his body to reload. How could Ron give him a chance? Ron showed a wicked smile on his face, raised his right foot high back and kicked forward quickly, with a beautiful inverted hook, directly hooking the bald killer's key organ. Ah! The bald killer screamed, and the voice directly soared from tenor to soprano. Ron didn't stop there, and took out his own dagger from his waist. When the bald killer put his feet together and stood on his tiptoes to cover his balls, he stabbed the bald killer's anus with a knife, and Hank, who was ready to come to support, felt a chill between his legs. If you have the guts, keep being so arrogant. In a moment, red, yellow, and black flowed out of the dagger. Ron quickly let go of his hand in disgust. He didn't want to get his hands on the smell. But if you think Ron let the bald killer go, you are wrong. After letting go of the dagger, before Hank arrived, Ron raised his right foot again, kicked the bald killer's hip with the dagger handle exposed again. Puff, a flower of blood splashed from the bald killer's hip, and the dagger was inserted deeper. And this time, the bald killer didn't even have the strength to scream, and fainted directly from the pain. Ugh, it's really disgusting. Ron looked at the unknown substances splashed on his leather shoes, curled his lips in disgust, put his leather shoes on the bald killer's suit, rubbed it hard, and finally made it shiny again. Ron nodded with satisfaction and looked at Hank, who came late. I'll leave this one alive to you. See if you can get anything useful out of him during the interrogation. As for the other one, see if he's still breathing. If not, just annihilate him humanely. Chapter 41, Suspicion of a Mole. I've been suspended, Hank said disappointedly. Ron was overjoyed. Hank resigned. Doesn't that mean that it's very likely that he would recruit someone at this time? Unfortunately, just like in all the movies, a siren sounded and the police finally arrived. Ron, why is it you again? The leading detective who got off the police car happened to be an acquaintance of Ron. Inspector Jack said helplessly, the last car chase was you, and the warehouse of the smuggling gang before that was you. How much trouble are you going to cause us? I don't want this to happen. Maybe you should reflect on why there have been such bad public security incidents recently, and I was the victim both times. Ron's tone was very innocent, just like a victim. Okay, what's the matter this time? Detective Jack finally noticed a fat man standing next to Ron at a loss. Are you Hank? I remember you are from the DIA. How come you are mixed up with Ron? Sorry, let me correct you, Ron interjected. Mr. Hank is just a poor employee who has just been suspended by the DIA. At this time, isn't it reasonable for him to meet with me, his new employer? Hey, Hank, as I said just now, you have been hired by the IRS. Don't forget to report to me tomorrow. Here, this is your sidearm. You may have to wait 2 more days for your ID. Ron winked at Hank and stuffed the pistol he had just emptied into the hands of Hank, who had not yet reacted. The gun has been registered as a sidearm of the IRS under Ron's name. He just needs to go back and change the information. Just like that, Ron poached a general from the FBI in front of him, and he was very happy. Although the two sides are now in the cooperation period, they never hesitate to make trouble for each other, not to mention that Ron really has no one to use. Jack smiled bitterly. He didn't know the situation on the DIA side, but he knew this person. He was a good gunman. However, there were many people like this under the FBI, so it was not his turn to feel sorry for him. Okay, what's the situation this time? Out of respect for his old superior, Hank still narrated everything in full. Jack frowned and found that the matter was not that simple, but he still didn't say anything. He waved his hand and asked someone to take the 2 killers who were only left with 1 breath away and send them to the hospital first. The back of Hank's car was completely deformed, so he could only get into Ron's car. Although the front bumper of the Bumblebee was deformed, it was still barely drivable. Why can't I remember when I promised you to join your Special Operations Force, but you didn't object just now, right? Ron said while driving. I just don't understand why you poached people in front of old Jack, and he didn't react at all. Am I really that bad at the DIA? You didn't even want to keep me. Hank lowered his head and began to reflect on his character. I said, I wouldn't really recruit a stupid subordinate, right? Ron not only did not try to comfort Hank, but mocked him. Jack is protecting you, my little anti-drug hero protecting me, Hank murmured. He still couldn't figure it out. Ron rolled his eyes. Think about it, how far is this place from where you work? It's less than 3 kilometers, and the nearest other police station is 8 kilometers away. Old Jack has arrived, but the DIA you used to work for has no reaction. Do you think this is normal? When he said this, Ron's eyes became sharp. Hank was suspended and handed in his pistol, and was ambushed by the killer. The timing was so good that it was incredible. In addition, the closest distance, but no police force was sent to support until now. The series of action seemed so confusing. If we exclude the wild idea that all DEA police officers are collectively deaf and can't hear the gunshots, then there is only one possibility. That is, there is a mole in the DEA, and his status is not low. This is why Jack let Ron cheat in front of him, because at this time, letting Hank follow Ron is indeed the best choice. After thinking about this, Hank shuddered. I don't understand. Who wants to kill me? Who made that call just now? What does he want to do? As a drug enforcement police officer, who else would want to kill you? Drug dealers, but they usually don't have that much patience, so you can check the few waves of people you have offended recently, or whether the people you sent to prison before have been released recently. Ron thought about it. As for the mysterious phone call, I guess there may be a split within the drug dealers, and the opponents called you, but this is just my guess, and you have to investigate the details yourself. With me, your actions will not be restricted in any way. You can investigate however you want. You may not know that I prefer to be your hands-off boss. Just remember to call me when you take action. How about it? Happy, Hank didn't know whether to cry or laugh for a while. It was indeed a good thing to not have so many rules and regulations to control him. His actions were freer, but Ron, in addition to his fighting ability and good analytical mind, didn't seem to be very reliable. At this time, the car had already driven to Hank's door. Hank opened the door. Okay, I agree to join you. I want to continue investigating the case of blue powder drugs. How many people can I get? Sorry, my special operations team currently only has you and me, and an accountant who has little fighting ability. You know, after all, we still have some tax investigation work. Ron smiled, revealing 8 neat white teeth, but his face did not look embarrassed at all. Hank's eyes widened. No one. Then what resources can I get? A complete arsenal. Funds that can never be spent. Ron tilted his head and thought for a while. How about a boss with extremely strong combat power? Do you want to regret it? Forget it. I don't want to go back to the DEA anyway. Hank sighed and got off the car to go home, but was stopped by Ron again. Remember, no matter what, we are a violent agency under the tax agency. Do you understand what I mean? As if afraid that Hank didn't understand, Ron continued to explain. If you find drug dealers, don't rush to act. Let's talk first and see if there's any possibility of collecting taxes. Wait. They are selling drugs, which is a crime. Hank, who hates evil, shouted loudly. I know, but if they pay taxes, they are also taxpayers, at least before we squeeze the last dollar out of them. Ron licked his lips hungrily. Where do you think we get so much funding? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Bar Encounter. Ron and the high-ranking officials behind him had no sympathy for the drug dealers. They all deserved to go to hell. But before they went to hell, a qualified capitalist or politician should squeeze out every last bit of surplus value from them. This was what Francis told Ron, and Ron agreed with it. Thinking of this, Ron drove the car to the door of a rundown bar. This was the shop where Hector was most active. After Toretto left, Ron's car maintenance and upkeep were all handed over to Hector. However, as soon as he arrived at the door, Ron saw 2 sneaky familiar figures. Howard, Rajesh, what the hell are you doing? After experiencing so many life and death, Ron thought that nothing could surprise him, but he still cried out in surprise when he saw the outfits of these 2. They were wearing dark eyeshadow and their hair was messy, as if they hadn't washed it for a few days. What was even more amazing was that their arms were covered with tattoos. Ron didn't understand Indian culture, but he knew that the Jewish canon seemed to be against tattoos. Was Howard crazy? He would definitely be kicked out of his mother's house if he did that. Howard didn't care about Ron's surprised look and greeted them familiarly. Hi, Ron, why are you here too? Are you also a people of the night? What the hell is people of the night? Ron was confused, but with the way you 2 are acting, aren't you afraid of being spanked by your mother when you get home? Howard's face turned red. I'm an adult already, I won't be spanked. Rajesh decisively interrupted. I don't think people who are still eating fruit oatmeal loops in their 20s should be called adults, especially when he asks his mother to pick out the fruits he doesn't like when eating fruit oatmeal loops. Ron turned to look at the innocent-looking Indian. I can understand Howard coming here to pick up girls, but Rajesh, what are you doing here? You can't even talk to a woman properly. Actually, It's okay now, provided you drink some alcoholic beverages. Raj looked smug when he talked about this, as if he had achieved some great achievement. Ron vaguely remembered that he seemed to have this complex when Rajesh's parents arranged a blind date for him. Well, it seems that I have missed a lot of interesting things in the past few days. You can talk to me when you have time. However, tattoos don't seem to be your style. Howard proudly pulled his tattooed arm, and the tattoo was pulled up like a stocking. It turned out to be fake. Look, this is called a tattoo sleeve. I bought it online. When I put it on, I am the son of the night, the lost boy, and I can make countless gothic girls crazy. But when I take it off, I am still a Jewish who strictly observes religious laws. Rajesh also bought one. How about it? Isn't it super handsome? If there was no gap in the ground for Ron to hide in, Ron really wanted to pretend that he didn't know these two weirdos. What tattoo sleeve? Isn't it just stockings? So, do you think girls will want to sleep with you just because you wear stockings on your arms? Ron covered his face in embarrassment. He was almost embarrassed. Of course. I also brought several spare pairs, just in case the tattoo sleeves get torn by the various rings or something on a woman's body. Do you want to wear a pair? Do you think I need this thing to pick up girls? Ron looked at the stockings Howard handed over with a surprised look. Well, you really don't need it. Howard took back his stockings embarrassedly and began to look carefully at the women in the bar, looking for possible prey. Ron was drinking beer absent-mindedly. He just received a text message from Hector, saying that he had something to do today and couldn't come. He asked Ron to give the car keys to the bartender, which meant that he might have to take a taxi tonight, or take the car of these two scumbags to go home. Hey, Ron. Look over there, there are two hot chicks. Howard suddenly patted Ron's shoulders excitedly. Ron slapped the dog's paw on his shoulder and said without looking back, what a joke. How hot can there be in a bar full of middle school students and pale, weak white men? Really, I'm not kidding you. Rajesh can testify. Hearing Howard's words, Rajesh also nodded excitedly. Believe me, Ron, one of them is blonde and sweet, with a pair of long legs that all men dream of, and the other is sexy and unrestrained, with a body that is so good that it explodes. OMG. It's really going to explode. I just saw the first button of her dress burst out by her big breasts. Howard's excited tone reminded Ron of the chickens raised by another stupid neighbor Billy when he was a child. The rooster looked very proud after crowing every day, as if the sun appeared because of its call. However, Howard's words successfully aroused Ron's interest. If he didn't get his work done today, it would be a good choice to hunt for a beauty. It was just a way to relax. The pair he described sounded a little familiar. Ron knew a pair of best friends. Ron turned around and just took a look. He immediately turned around quickly, trying to hunch over to avoid being discovered. As expected, Los Angeles is really small. It was really the pair of best friends he knew, Caroline and Max. Howard was so stunned that he didn't even notice the string of saliva hanging from the corner of his mouth. Oh my God, they are so beautiful. If I can sleep with any of them for one night, I would rather be a vegetarian for the rest of my life. Rajesh, have you seen that busted girl? Ron saw Howard's useless look and sneered. If your family's appetite is good enough, believe me, no way, you know that girl? Then I'll just choose the long-legged girl. Ron, my dear friend, can you please take us to find a girl? And introduce us to her. By the way, Howard finally heard that Ron's tone was not good. His eyes rolled around and he had an idea. He actually wanted to use Ron as a tool to pick up girls. I'm sorry, the other one is actually mine too, or I should say, I knew her earlier than the busted girl. Chapter 43 Caroline's Prince. I'm sorry, the other chick is mine too, or rather, I've known her longer than the busted chick. Ron saw Caroline's eyes scanning the bar, and he quickly lowered his body. He didn't want to meet two girls at this time. After all, he didn't have the eloquence to persuade two extremely beautiful girls to play games together. The two nerdy scientists gave Ron a thumbs up at the same time, with admiration in their eyes, and said sincerely, Ron, you are really the best at picking up girls among all the people we know. If you are talking about comparing it with another scientist who wears glasses and loves to fantasize, and my brother who has no interest in women at all, well, I should really be the best playboy among the people you know. Of course, I prefer this compliment to be said to me by a woman in another scene. Oh Ron, you are so great, Howard said with a pinched throat, and Ron punched him lightly on the back. Howard, you're really disgusting. Okay, can you tell me why you look a little scared of seeing them now? Howard had a lot of ideas, Could it be that you accidentally wet the bed? If I were with these two lovely girls, I would rather be exhausted and incontinent. I won't do that. After all, I'm an agent and my physical fitness is much better than that of ordinary people. Ron saw that his two best friends finally sat at the bar on the other side, chatting and laughing with the bartender, and then he was relieved and returned to his normal posture. It's just that due to some accidents, some wonderful things happened to them on the same day, but I didn't know they knew each other. In order to ensure that I can continue to maintain this kind of contact with them, I can only try to meet them alone. In the hope that one day one of them will say to me, "Hey, Ron, you are really amazing. I can't handle it alone. Why don't you call my good friend to come together?" Ron spread his hands helplessly. He admitted that he was a bit of a jerk from the perspective of his Oriental thinking in his previous life, and a bit of a jerk from the perspective of conservative Westerners, but the customs of Europe and America were seriously polarized. At least it was okay in Los Angeles. But he should never have done that. The two girls lived together before he arranged everything. Can this be said to be the strong inertia of the plot? Anyway, based on his understanding of Caroline, her self-esteem should not be so low that she would play with her friends. Well, anyway, Ron was a little jealous when he saw the two of them talking and laughing with a handsome bartender. Damn possessiveness. But while Ron and the other two were chatting, Caroline drank the tequila someone gave her and exclaimed, "Wow! A glass of tequila can make her like this. What else can she do?" Max was shocked. The expressions were the same, but they kept silent. Caroline began to look around, but accidentally saw the woman who had a conflict in the second-hand store today, and immediately pushed Max next to her. "Oh my God. It's that bitch from the second-hand store. I'll go get justice for you." My bestie Caroline's words were a little drunken at this point, and Ron, who was watching from afar, felt nervous. He once again remembered Caroline's poor alcohol tolerance, which made her fall after just one glass of wine. Would this girl do something bad again today? Ron silently took the cup and took a few steps closer, so that he could come to support Caroline in time when she got into trouble, just like when they first met. Sure enough, Caroline walked up to the tattooed girl sitting in the man's arms with her long legs. "Hey, I want to talk to you about a t-shirt in the second-hand store today. My friend got it first, but your friend took it away. What are you talking about?" "Bitch," the tattooed girl stood up from the man's arms and retorted. Although we didn't leave a good impression when we first met, Caroline tried to reason with him, but was interrupted by the other party before she finished her sentence. "Do you want me to give you a kick to make you look more impressive?" "Bitch," Ron shook his head awkwardly. Compared to the street girl vibe of the other girl, Caroline looked weak. "Well, it seems that everyone knows what words you like to use." This was the first time Caroline encountered such a completely unreasonable crazy woman. She was at a loss for words and could only retreat helplessly. However, the other girl had no intention of letting her go and pulled her hair hard from behind. "Ah," Caroline turned around angrily, "this is my natural beautiful hair." "Bitch," Caroline cherished her hair very much, but just when she was about to leave again, her hair was pulled hard again. This time, the tattooed girl did not let go. Ron had already walked to Max unconsciously. "Max, don't you want to help your friend?" No, her name is Caroline, she is a spoiled girl. I think she should be beaten for a few seconds before she will learn her lesson." "Ron, why are you here?" Max was no longer surprised by the fights in the bar, but was extremely surprised by Ron's appearance here. Ron pretended to be relaxed and said, "I came to meet a friend, but obviously, I was stood up." "A woman." Max's tone made Ron unable to tell whether she was jealous or not. "A man, Hector, the bartenders here should all know him." The bartender nodded in cooperation and testified. Caroline screamed, "Over there." Obviously, the tattooed girl increased her strength. "I think I should take action." Ron picked up the tequila that Max had taken a sip of and drank it all. "Come on, Your Highness," Caroline's Prince Max cheered behind him. Unexpectedly, Ron walked past a tattooed girl who was pulling Caroline's hair without any action, until he walked to the suspected boyfriend of the tattooed girl who was watching the show with his hands folded. This is why Caroline is obviously much more beautiful than the tattooed girl, but no one came out to save her. Her boyfriend looks too strong. But Ron suddenly got angry. Pulling the tattooed girlfriend's boyfriend's long hair and pressing down hard, the man's face immediately came into close contact with Ron's knee. His face was covered in blood, and even a few of his front teeth were broken. "Waste, take your bitch away. If you dare to touch my woman again, I will kill you." Ron lowered his head and said to the strong man, "Go to hell." Bitch, the strong man's tone was exactly the same as his girlfriend's. He yelled and struggled hard, picked up the wine bottle on the table and smashed it on Ron's handsome face. Be careful, Max shouted. But the voice was fast enough, and Ron's movements were even faster. Just when everyone thought that Ron's head would be smashed by the wine bottle in the strong man's hand, Ron took a wrong step, stepped forward with his right foot, and actually got into the strong man's arms. And his shoulder leaned against the strong man's chest. The strong man flew backwards like a villain in a kung fu movie and hit the wall behind him heavily. I don't even need to use my hands to beat a waist like you. Chapter 44. He's dead. The sturdy man hit the wall and slid to the ground, groaning in pain. Several friends who were originally planning to help the sturdy man immediately stopped and quietly left the bar as if nothing had happened. What's up, baby? Do you want to continue? Ron grabbed his head and lifted him up, asking kindly, but it sounded creepy to the sturdy man. The sturdy man's eyes were full of fear. No. No. I know I was wrong, I'll take her away now. Without Ron's urging, the sturdy man struggled to get up and slap the tattooed woman who was holding Caroline's hair and showing off. Caroline finally seized the opportunity to free herself, climbed onto Max in a daze, grabbed the bottle of wine on the table and drank it all in one breath. That was tequila with a concentration of more than 40 degrees. Ron knew that she wanted to give himself courage, but the only result of doing so was that she would most likely not wake up tonight and could sleep well. Sure enough, Caroline took 2 steps after drinking. I don't know whether she was going to continue to fight with the tattooed girl or chat with Ron, but this also gave Ron a chance. Ron looked at Max. I don't know if it was a coincidence, the latter also looked over. The two ignored Caroline's existence and stared at each other from a distance. The air seemed to be filled with sparks of passion. Ron, it seems that you won't be bored tonight. I really envy you, Howard said sourly. Seeing Howard's pitiful look, Ron's heart softened for some reason. Isn't it too early to say this now? Are you sure you won't have any more fun tonight? Of course, although I always consider myself a pickup artist in Leonard's place, I actually know that I'm not popular with those girls. Howard lowered his head. Just like you said, no woman will have sex with me just because I wear stockings on my arms, right? To be honest, Ron felt a little uncomfortable seeing his friend like this. After all, he is a person with emotional intelligence, not a fool who sacrifices all emotional intelligence for IQ. That may not be the case. Following Ron's words, the Tuataku scientist's eyes lit up with hope again. Ron noticed that the tattooed girl's boyfriend left in disgrace after a big fight with his girlfriend, while the tattooed girl, with a slap mark on her face, was drinking with her friend and another tattooed girl in a white t-shirt. Ron pointed over there, and the Tuatakus quickly looked in the direction of his finger like sharks smelling blood. If you can scold the ungentlemanly behavior of beating women, I guess you can easily blend into their conversation. Of course, I don't mind you secretly scolding me behind my back. Impossible, we are good brothers. How can we say bad things about you behind your back? Howard immediately said sensibly after noticing Ron's dangerous eyes, and Rajesh nodded repeatedly. Okay, look over there, there are 2 girls. Come on. Ron casually threw out a word of encouragement, walked towards Max openly, hugged Max's delicate body and gave her a deep kiss. How is it? Did your night's performance disappoint you? Your Majesty, Ron kissed her hand seriously. Max naturally followed Ron's words and pretended to be wearing a long skirt that dragged on the ground. He made a small gesture to lift the skirt, and her evil chest shook again. Of course not, or it's better than I thought. My knight, what reward do you want? Power? Status? Treasure? Ron opened his mouth wide. You want so much? Looks like I have to consider changing a knight. Then I'll just take you. Ron picked Max up in a princess hug while she was exclaiming. Max flirted coquettishly. Hey. We still have to take this drunk cat back. You might as well hold her since you have the strength. Ron put Max down and picked up Caroline. So, where are we going now? Your house? My house? Or Hilton? My house. Caroline, who was asleep, played games with Max. It was exciting to think about it. Ron felt that they were one step closer to a showdown. The next day, Ron woke up in his own bed as usual. In order to avoid the embarrassment of Caroline waking up in the morning and to have a good sleep, Ron satisfied Max again and left. However, the first call he received early in the morning was not so pleasant for him. Ron, he's dead. He died in our police station. It was suicide. Jack's voice was low. Who are you talking about? The killer you dealt with yesterday? The one who was hit by a car died on the way to the hospital, and the other one you subdued died after hitting his head against the wall when our staff weren't paying attention. Our clues are gone again. Damn, there must be a traitor among us. And a very high-ranking one at that." Jack's voice sounded a little exasperated. "When has your FBI not been infiltrated like a sieve?" "I am not surprised at all," Ron sneered mercilessly. "I didn't expect anything anyway. You knew he would commit suicide, right?" Ron spit out his mouthwash. "Of course. Think about it, a guy who dared to assassinate a police officer in the parking lot outside the mall. How could he not be a drug cartel assassin?" "Drug cartel? How did you know?" Ron looked in the mirror, still handsome. "Jack, did you sleep your brain out? Think about it, who else could have assassinated Hank? He is just a drug enforcement SWAT police, and there are no other complicated interpersonal relationships. In addition to the drug cartel, what other reasons could be involved in such an assassination?" Ron thought for a while and added, "And I am very sure that this should be the work of the drug cartel in Mexico, because this action is full of the Mexican style of revenge. It seems that Hank's direction is very likely to be correct. He must have found, or is about to find, the foundation of this gang." At this point, Ron's eyes lit up. "So, is there a chance for him to get the bonus?" "I've also investigated Hank's side. It's indeed as you said. I also think his idea is right. The ghost-like drug maker who made the blue powder must still be working. But I don't understand how he suddenly sold that stuff all over the country overnight. Is it on the shelves of Walmart supermarkets? Maybe he has reached a cooperation with the hidden drug lord you mentioned?" "Yes, that must be the case." Ron was also shocked by his sudden idea. Chapter 45, Case Restoration and Reinforcements. "Maybe he has reached a cooperation with the hidden drug lord you mentioned?" "Yes, that must be the case." Ron was also shocked by his sudden idea. The drug lord codenamed Fried Chicken Brothers has a sales channel all over the country. Although Ron didn't know how he could do all this quietly, and the drug maker Heisenberg has the best drug-making technology, if the two are combined, basically other drug dealers can only do second-hand distribution and other jobs. And now it seems that Ron's conjecture is very likely to come true. Combining these clues with Hank's sudden suspension and then being assassinated immediately, things become a little subtle, which makes Ron have to associate. Is it that Hank's current investigation route just happened to touch the vital point of this drug trafficking group, so he can't wait to kill and silence him? After hanging up Jack's phone, Ron immediately packed up and returned to his office. Hank had arrived earlier than him, and the house was much cleaner after being cleaned by the cleaning company that Andy hired temporarily. "Good morning, boss." Hank was restless and greeted Ron. "Good morning, welcome to join us." Sitting over there is Andy, our accountant. "I remember telling you that if you need to file taxes or something, you can ask him for help. As long as it's not excessive, I will turn a blind eye." Ron winked at Hank mischievously. "Of course, if it's a combat mission, I suggest not to bring him along. He's old and needs to take care of himself." "Thank you, boss." Andy looked up and greeted Hank, without any sign of being offended. Hank was a little confused about what Ron meant. Isn't this the Special Operations Force of the IRS? Is it really okay to talk about reasonable tax avoidance so openly? Or is this a test? Ron had to continue to explain. "Don't think too much. Reasonable tax avoidance is not a shameful thing. The richest people in the United States actually pay much less tax than ordinary people like us. Compared with them, each of us is a good citizen." "Okay, I thought it was a test for an interview." Hank's mood finally calmed down a little. "Interview? It's not that troublesome here. Or rather, your previous performance in the IRS is enough to prove that you are qualified for this job." Ron had no awareness of being an interviewer, so Hank was nervous for nothing. "I think you can carry out the work seamlessly. After all, my main task here is the same as yours. So, can you tell me what aspects you are investigating recently? I always feel that your current direction is probably correct, so it has attracted these assassinations." "What do you think?" "You mean the assassination yesterday? I thought it was a revenge assassination by the drug dealers I sent in before." As a drug enforcement policeman, Hank has long been accustomed to this, and it is not even the first time he has encountered it, so he has developed the habit of carrying a gun at all times. "I had this guess at the beginning, but I asked Jack, the head of the FBI, to check the records of the prisoners you sent in before. None of them have been released from prison recently, and they have even had little contact with the outside world recently." Ron handed Hank a report, which he asked Jack for on the way here. This Hank hesitated a little. and began to recall what he had done recently. But after thinking about it, it seemed that he had not done anything else except following the clues of Jesse, the gangster, and combining the border murder case with the investigation. He briefly told Ron about his recent thoughts and actions. Ron frowned and couldn't figure it out for a while. He even started to draw a little turtle on the notebook out of boredom. "Boss, is our job today to draw in the house?" Hank was a little dissatisfied with Ron's attitude. He thought he could investigate the case well when he came to the IRS, but he ended up sitting in the office. How could Hank, who always acted vigorously and decisively, bear this? He would rather go out to investigate the case by himself, even if there was no support, as long as he had a gun. It must be said that Hank's personality was a bit like a Texas tough guy. What's wrong with going out instead of staying in the house? Going out and wandering around the streets? See if the criminal will take the initiative to bump into you and tell you that everything was done by him, Ron retorted without any awareness of the boss. Hank said stubbornly, "That's better than doing nothing." "Who said I didn't do anything?" Ron raised his head in exasperation. "Do you know how hard my inner struggle is? There is someone who can break the deadlock, but I'm just entangled." "Someone who can break the deadlock?" Hank's eyes lit up. "Do you have any special intelligence channels in the IRS?" "What a joke. If there is, I would have used it long ago." "Why would I have to go to you every day to share intelligence?" Ron said unhappily. "What intelligence sharing?" "It's obviously to get our intelligence." Hank secretly complained in his heart, but after all, he is now Ron's subordinate, and he wisely didn't say his true thoughts. Hank asked, "Who is that person?" "A lunatic. A lunatic who is bored to the point of being a psychopath. I wouldn't be surprised if he committed a crime one day because he was too bored. He is a complete paranoid." Ron said a lot of derogatory words in one breath, but immediately, his expression changed and his tone became very ambiguous. "But he is also a true genius. I have never seen any case that can stump him. He can even infer the entire process of the case from your few words, as if he is the real murderer, and accurately restore every detail of the case." Hank had heard about Ron's arrogance from others. He couldn't help but be curious about who he was, as he could get such a high evaluation from him. "Is he a private detective? I heard that there are few real masters in this industry, so why don't we ask him to help us? Is it because his fees are too high?" Our funds. Hank had just joined, and he learned to take advantage of the IRS's abundant funds. Ron waved his hand to interrupt. "This has nothing to do with money. This weirdo doesn't even care about money. If the case is difficult enough, he can even come to help you without money, but he has a very bad temper." Ron showed a constipated expression. "It's so bad that I'm afraid I can't help but shoot him in the head." "Yes, that's right. Besides having an incredibly bad temper, he also has a mouth as vicious as my brother's. P.S. So, can anyone guess who this reinforcement is? If you can guess it before I publish the next chapter, you will automatically get the chapter naming rights. Chapter 46, Mr. Foulmouth. At this time, even Andy, who was doing nothing and pretending to be busy, began to be curious. Under Ron's arrangement, he spent a few days with Toretto and was responsible for receiving Ron's other social events. He had always been impressed that Ron was difficult to deal with. Even Toretto, the leader of the Los Angeles drag race, looked troubled every time he mentioned Ron. This was the first time he saw Ron being embarrassed because of a person. "Boss, if that person can really help, it is a gentleman's choice to bow his head occasionally," old Andy taught like an elegant butler. Hank saw Andy joining the battle and quickly agreed, "That's right. Where's the private detective? If it's not convenient for you, I can go and ask him for you. Here, this is his contact information." Ron opened his phone and threw a contact on the table. Hank quickly took it. He saw that the name of this contact was marked by Ron as Mr. Foulmouth. This shows how harshly Ron was ridiculed by him. What surprised Hank the most was that the phone number was not on the United States, but from London, England. "Is he British?" Hank was a little slow to react. "Has he just come to the United States?" "No, he hasn't come to the United States at all. He still has a home in London, 221 Baker Street. Aren't you going to invite him for me?" "Go ahead, I can reimburse you for the round-trip airfare." The depressed look on Ron's face now completely disappeared, replaced by a full sense of accomplishment in teasing his subordinates. "London? It will take about 4 to 5 days to go back and forth. Am I leaving now?" Hank didn't realize that he was being teased at all, which made Ron feel a little frustrated. "Are you really going?" Ron took the phone back from Hank. "There's no need at all. I mean, you don't have to go, and there's no need for him to come. It's too much trouble, but if he doesn't come, how can he help us? Does the intelligence network controlled by this private detective cover Los Angeles? His brother may have that ability, but it's definitely not him. Ron shrugged and lay down in the chair, with a look of reminiscence on his face, but it was obviously not a good memory. This guy can help us without coming, Hank asked. Ron took a deep breath. If I say that he can help us with reasoning without even coming to the scene, do you believe it? Hank and Andy showed the same "I'm afraid you are kidding me" expression. If it weren't for Ron's explosive fighting power, they would have wanted to send him to Arkham Asylum right now. Alice, the wisdom of mere mortals really can't understand the world of geniuses. Ron mocked his subordinates and continued, you may not understand, but some geniuses can really construct the scene of the entire case in their minds based on your description, and then make inferences. Forget it. For the bonus, I'll let you see it today. Ron picked up the phone and walked to the windowsill. He took a few deep breaths of air, trying to keep himself calm, then pressed the dial button and turned on the external speaker function of the phone. Beep. The ringtone rang only twice before the owner answered. Let me guess, what stupid thing did my dear little fool do today? Did you encounter a childish case that you couldn't solve and decided to call the parents? I have to say that you made a wise choice, so I really don't like talking to you. Really, Sherlock, Ron could have retorted. But he softened his tone decisively because he was asking for help. I don't like talking to you either. Compared to you, I like your genius brother more. Although we are in different fields, geniuses will always resonate no matter where they are. As for you, I just think you will lower the IQ of an entire street. The person on the other end of the phone continued to challenge Ron's endurance, and veins on Ron's forehead throbbed. Hard. Ron's fist was hard. If that bastard was right in front of Ron, he would definitely give him a good beating, but unfortunately, there was an entire Atlantic Ocean between the two of them. I have to remind you, Sherlock, the distance between us now is not a street but the entire Atlantic Ocean. There was a slight silence on the other end of the phone. Oh, you lowered the IQ of the entire Atlantic Ocean? Ho ha ho ho. Hank finally couldn't help laughing out loud, and Ron glared at him fiercely and shut his mouth tactfully. I don't know why, even though the other party hadn't shown any strength, he inexplicably had a sense of trust in the other party. Maybe, teasing Ron itself is a manifestation of strength? Ron gritted his teeth and said, I have something to talk to you about, of course, otherwise you wouldn't call me. Come and talk to me. I'm so bored that I've started to put nicotine patches on my body. I hope the case you bring to me can make me more interesting. Okay, Hank, you tell me. Ron handed the phone to Hank, and Hank reported the entire progress of the Heisenberg drug case from the beginning to the present in detail. So, Mr. Sherlock, what do you think of this case? Hank asked nervously but expectantly. Sherlock Holmes, who was far away at 221 Baker Street in London, looked up comfortably like an addict under the stimulation of nicotine patches, then quickly tore off all the patches on his body and threw them on the ground and picked up the phone. Idiot. Wait, what did you say? Hank suspected that his ears received the wrong information. I mean idiot. As expected, I shouldn't have any expectations of you. The subordinates of idiots can only be idiots, Sherlock said coldly. Hank immediately understood Ron's mood, because his fists hardened. Hello. Ron had no choice but to answer the phone again. He didn't want to waste time listening to Hank and Sherlock bickering on the phone. Overseas calls were still quite expensive, and every penny saved was a penny earned. Sherlock, don't keep me in suspense. I know you already know what's going on. Tell me your reasoning. I think my men have given you enough details, and even I can't provide you with more information. That's enough information. Sherlock's mocking voice sounded in the receiver. Before I start my reasoning, I want to say it first. There is a reason why I say you are idiots. The criminals are committing crimes almost under your noses, and you didn't even notice it. Sure enough, I shouldn't have expected more from the American police. You are just a group of idiots who only know how to use violence. P.S. It's a pity that no one guessed it. It may be that the time left was too short. Chapter 47. Sherlock's reasoning. Hank looked ashamed. In Ron's opinion, he still lacked experience in dealing with such foul-mouthed geniuses. Sherlock's poison spray was like a breeze to Ron, with almost no damage. Otherwise, how do you think Ron grew up with Sheldon and didn't strangle that naughty kid? The criminal is right under my nose? Who are you talking about? Hank touched his increasingly bald head and thought hard, but still couldn't figure out who around him had that ability. First of all, let's talk about the drug maker. He is your wife's brother-in-law, the guy named Walter White. Hank was shocked. How is it possible? You must be talking nonsense. I know Walter very well. He is definitely not that kind of person. So, you are an idiot, Sherlock said bluntly. At this time, Ron finally spoke up to smooth things over. Sorry, Sherlock, my subordinate doesn't look very smart. Can you please explain the reasoning process in detail? Maybe he was not busy, or maybe he was really bored. Sherlock rarely had the patience to explain to Hank. You must have investigated the movement of the equipment and drugs needed to prepare these drugs in the market, right? The flow of drugs is vague and difficult to track, but those special chemical equipment are not usually bought by anyone, so it is easy to track their whereabouts. I guess no one in the market buys those things, but they were lost in the school, right? Yes, that's right. Hank gradually regained his composure from the shock just now. He clearly didn't mention this detail just now. How did he know? Is it really like Ron said, there is really a genius who can deduce the whole case without going to the scene? We are now putting together several clues of this drug manufacturing case. First of all, you said that the purity of this drug is as high as 90%. This is definitely not something that a gangster from a public school can make. It requires a high level of chemical knowledge and relevant experimental experience. And no student can steal things from the school laboratory more easily than the teacher who holds the key. In addition, I just found out that when Mr. Walter was young, he was a well-known chemical genius. He even opened a chemical company with his friends and almost independently completed all the new product research. The equipment lost in the school just happened to coincide with the equipment used to make these drugs. Secondly, the entanglement between the drug dealer and the chemistry teacher you are tracking down. I have to say that using amnesia to cover up his disappearance is really a very bad excuse. And the excuse of going to buy drugs because of drug use is also bad enough. Believe it or not, if you pull a strand of his hair for testing, you will definitely not find any traces of drug use. Because no one knows the harm of methamphetamine to the human body better than a chemical genius. Hank's back was sweating. When Sherlock connected these clues together, he realized that he had overlooked so many details. However, Sherlock was in no mood to take care of Hank's emotions. He continued to talk about his reasoning at a fast speed. The next point is the motive. There is no doubt that a poor person with a terminal illness and an ordinary family will definitely want to use his ability to leave something for his family, or strive for a sum of money to cure himself. To be honest, Ron, if you still have such a boring case next time, don't look for me. Although I am very bored now. Your case is too simple. Ron has long been accustomed to being hit by Sherlock, and just shrugged indifferently. Anyway, you are idle now. Why don't you help me think about where the big drug lord who sells drugs everywhere is hiding? My dear reasoning master Mr. Sherlock, a few compliments will not kill anyone, and it doesn't cost a penny. Ron has never been stingy with free compliments. Not only does it not cost a penny, but it may also earn a considerable amount of bonuses. Okay, first of all, tell me, besides California, in which other states have you found these drugs? If possible, it's best to tell them in chronological order. First California, then Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico. Ron skillfully recited a series of place names. Needless to say, the drug lord you mentioned is the owner of the Fried Chicken Brothers chain store. Go find him. Wait, how did you deduce this? Hank asked in a lost voice. According to the time when the drugs were discovered, it just happens to form a functional relationship with the distance to California. It is obvious that they spread from California, and the common feature of these states you just mentioned is that they all happen to have Fried Chicken Brothers chain stores, but these states also have KFC. Ron finally caught Sherlock's logical loophole and complained. Sherlock retorted, but KFC's food delivery is directly delivered from farms in various states for convenience, and there is no need for such long-distance interstate transportation. In fact, the only chain store in the United States whose entire supply chain comes from the same place as Fried Chicken Brothers. Ron quickly searched on his computer, and after being reminded by Sherlock, he discovered this abnormality of the company. The company's official website stated that this was to ensure the uniform taste and texture of the chicken. However, anyone with a little common sense knows that almost all edible chickens in the United States are specific varieties developed by biological companies, and even the feed they eat is the same, so the taste of chickens raised in different places is basically the same. Mr. Flynn, Hank shouted, looking at the photo on Ron's computer. What? Do you know him again? Ron asked curiously. Hank pointed at the photo of the black bus and said, "He is one of the biggest sponsors of the DEA Los Angeles branch. You know that the DEA's funding has never been enough. Well, you were assassinated for no reason at all. Your intelligence system is really infiltrated like a sieve." Sherlock's voice sneered in the receiver, which sounded extremely harsh, but Ron didn't care. "Since the great genius has helped us deduce the identity of the mastermind, can you also help me find the place where they make drugs? You know the law. I can't arrest them without evidence." "Well, their drug laboratory should be in the laundry in Glendale," Hank murmured. "Is this also deduced?" "No, I found it on Google Maps. It's under Gustavo's name, far away from the downtown area, with reasonable reasons to discharge toxic fumes, and next to the highway to quickly transport goods out. There is no better place than this. P.S. I said I would update twice a day, and there will be another update later. It will probably be a bit late. Friends who can't wait can read it tomorrow." Chapter 48. We are just collecting taxes. "Boss, let's go and seal up the drug lab right now." Hank couldn't wait to make a suggestion as soon as Ron hung up the phone. Ron asked curiously, "Why do we seal it up? So that we can have evidence to prosecute him for drug manufacturing and trafficking?" Hank said as a matter of course. He had always done this in the DEA and didn't think there was anything wrong with it. "Excuse me, Mr. Hank, I have to remind you that you are no longer working in the DEA, but in the IRS. We don't have the power to enforce drug laws," Ron said with a serious face. "Then what should we do?" "Should we just leave him alone?" Hank said angrily. He thought that switching to Ron's place would help him realize his ambition, but he didn't expect that the reality would disappoint him terribly. Ron showed a strange smile on his face. "Of course not, Mr. Hank. Do you know what the most important job of our IRS is? Collecting taxes?" Hank asked tentatively, and Ron responded with a satisfied smile. "That's right, Hank, but what does tax collection have to do with drugs? Do you think Flynn is just a drug dealer?" Ron put his hands together and supported his chin. "How naive, isn't it? Of course not, or not entirely. While he's a drug dealer, he is also a shameful tax evader. So far, the IRS has not received a penny of tax from him for the drug trade business, not a penny." Ron slammed the table hard and emphasized, "So, we have the right to collect taxes from him, and we can use violence when necessary." After saying that, Ron blinked mischievously, and Hank immediately understood. Yes, the IRS does not have the right to investigate drug enforcement, but it can definitely go to Flynn to collect taxes. Hank doesn't believe that he can really pay the drug tax. Then what should we do? I have never done tax collection work. Should we go directly to him for an interview? Hank planned to seriously learn from his boss to see what tricks he would play. "It's okay. I will teach you well. You will learn it after learning it once. Besides, your relative's chemistry teacher is okay. Do you think a drug lord like Gustavo Flynn will pay taxes well? Probably not." Hank thought about it. Not to mention Flynn, even Walter would fight for the money in order to get treatment or leave a sufficient inheritance for his children. Ron turned his head to Andy beside him. "Andy, did someone who looks like Nicolas Cage deliver anything yesterday?" "If you mean the strange-looking pickup truck, it's parked in the garage downstairs now." Andy took out a key from the drawer and threw it over. Ron reached out to catch it, and then pressed under the desk. The bookshelf that was originally filled with various books immediately split in the middle, revealing the secret room inside. These Hank opened his mouth in surprise. The secret room was filled with all kinds of weapons from Springfield rifles to recoilless guns. It can be said to be a small arsenal. Hank conservatively estimated that the equipment inside could at least arm a battalion. "This is the arsenal of the IRS Special Operations Team. Take whatever you like. Don't hesitate," Ron said generously. At the same time, he took off his suit to reveal his strong muscles, put on a composite bulletproof vest inside, and covered it tightly with a large plaid shirt. It was not visible from the outside. Then he put the Smith & Wesson pistol into the holster, took a Remington M870 and put it on his back. Before leaving, he took a tattered felt hat from the hanger and put it on his head, looking like an old Western cowboy. "Boss, isn't it a bit excessive for us to carry such equipment? Are we going to war?" Hank asked nervously while sitting in Ron's truck with a gun in his arms. Because he noticed that this pickup truck seemed to be different from ordinary ones. Not only did the shell seem to be bulletproof, but even the things in the back of the car made him scared, bringing back some bad memories of his time in the army. Ron started the car and drove out of the garage. "Fighting? How could you have such an idea?" We are just going to collect taxes. Do you need that thing to collect taxes? Hank pointed to the big guy covered with cloth at the back. It was a 12-barrel steel monster welded to the rear compartment. If he remembered correctly, it should be a 63 Type 107mm rocket launcher. When he was a soldier in Iraq, the local guerrillas often used this thing. There is no recoil, and shooting is convenient and fast, but it can fire 12 rockets at the same time. While the firepower is fierce, it is also light in weight. It is only 613 kilograms in full ammunition state. After firing, it can be transferred immediately and can be towed by any small car. Therefore, it is known as the three major weapons of the guerrillas together with AK and RPG. The unit Hank was in was attacked by this weapon, which left him with a deep psychological trauma. Of course, Ron raised his voice in dissatisfaction. There are only two of us, and they are a group of heavily armed drug gang militants. Only this can give me enough sense of security, but it's too powerful. Do you want to blow up the drug lab? Then what evidence do we have to accuse him of drug trafficking? No, I mean tax evasion. Hank felt that Ron didn't look like a tax bureau employee who went to collect taxes at all. Instead, he looked like a guerrilla fighter who often appeared in his dreams. Using this thing to collect taxes? What wouldn't be blown to pieces? What can be collected? Don't worry, Ron waved his hand. I didn't use all high-explosive rockets. There are only 4 real lethal rockets. The others are tear gas and flash bombs. I know my limits. That's good. Hank just felt relieved and immediately felt something was wrong. What a bullshit. Even if it's tear gas, using this amount of charge is too much, isn't it? What else can I do? You know I'm short of manpower, so I can only use firepower to close the gap between us. Or do you want to turn into Stallone who got the first blood and fight them all alone? This sentence immediately made Hank sit in the chair and stop talking. He was still young and had a beautiful wife. He didn't want to die so early. Immediately, the pickup truck drove to an open space less than 5 kilometers away from Flynn's laundry. There was no building blocking the way from here to the laundry, so it was a perfect launch base. The smoke on the top of the laundry chimney in the distance was slightly yellow, which should be the smoke produced by the initial reaction of methylamine. If Ron guessed correctly, drug production activities were being carried out inside. In other words, Hank's chemistry teacher brother-in-law happened to be inside. Ron tore off the cloth, revealing the ferocious steel monster inside. Now, start working. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. The battle begins. Ron got out of the car and tore off the cloth, revealing the hideous steel monster inside. Now, start working. I don't know if it was God's favor or Arthur Morgan's obsession in heaven. Ron found that his sharpshooter characteristics could actually be added to the Type 63 multiple rocket launcher. Is this also considered a revolver weapon? Ron drew a big question mark in his mind, and instantly felt that the Remington shotgun in his hand was not so good. I miscalculated. I should have brought out my M32, Ron murmured. Isn't it enough to have multiple rocket launchers? Do you know how terrible it is if this thing is fully loaded with high-explosive rockets? It can almost wipe that laundry shop off the map. Hank scratched his ears. Did he hear it right? Is this not enough firepower? There's no way. Who made my soul come from a mysterious ancient oriental country, and the fear of insufficient heavy firepower is deeply engraved in my blood? Ron shrugged and said nonsensically. Are you talking about the game? Hank rechecked the M4 carbine in his hand and asked in confusion. His new boss often said shocking things and made irrelevant remarks. Although Andy had told him not to pay attention to him, Hank still couldn't help asking. No, I'm talking about reincarnation. Ron used Chinese when he said the word reincarnation. Hank was confused, but fortunately Ron didn't want to continue on this topic. See the small street in front of the laundry? You can go around to the back door of the laundry room. There is a house facing the laundry room. You stay there first. After I fire, someone will come out. No matter what living creatures you see, just let them lie down. Don't rush in without my order. Understand? The weapon in your hand is not a child's toy. I don't need to teach you this, right? Hank nodded and shook his head quickly. He didn't know how to respond for a while. Ron waved his hand and began to lurk to the designated place. During this time, He did not attract the attention of anyone in the laundry room. After adjusting the aiming of the rocket launcher to the appropriate position, Ron finally pressed the launch button. Swoosh! Whoosh! 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 The first round of 4 rockets loaded with tear gas warheads rushed into Uncle Fried Chicken's laundry room like a swarm of bees. "There is an attack," the people inside screamed in fear and immediately laid down. Others followed suit and lay on the ground, but the expected explosion did not happen. Instead of exploding, the 4 rockets spread out a kind of black gas at an incredible speed. The people who were wrapped in the gas were immediately choked, and their noses and tears flowed all over their faces. The sound of coughing was heard in the smoke. "It's tear gas," some of Flynn's men immediately responded, got up from the ground and fled in all directions, trying to avoid the smoke. However, this laundry shop only had 2 doors, one in front and one in the back, and most people immediately set their sights on the door. On the other side, after estimating the time, Ron adjusted the launch angle again, set the rocket landing point at the door of the laundry shop, and pressed the launch button again. Whoosh! The 4 rockets left the barrel almost at the same time and landed in the fleeing gangsters at the door of the laundry shop in an instant. However, the difference this time was that these 4 rockets were all high-explosive bombs. Boom! With a loud bang. The gangsters at the door were blown into the sky by the air wave caused by the explosion before they had time to figure out what had just landed among them, and then they were torn into pieces by shrapnel. Ron conservatively estimated that at least 7 or 8 of the gangsters had been killed, and he finally showed a satisfied look. "Perfect. Cough, cough. There's someone at the door. Cough, go through the back door," a black-skinned man who seemed to be the leader of the gangsters commanded with a rifle, and then rushed out of the back door as soon as possible. After pushing open the door, the gang leader immediately greedily took a deep breath of unpolluted air, and was finally saved. However, before he could finish his breath, Hank, who had been ambushing at the back door, fired a short burst of click, 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 and the gang leader fell to the ground. Cunning cops, they also ambushed people at the back door. Now, even without being told, the other gangsters inside understood, and immediately took out various weapons and coughed and fired wildly at the back door. Unfortunately, it was useless. Hank remembered Ron's order and just stood at the back door, waiting to ambush any drug dealer who tried to escape from the back door. Ron, who had been waiting for a long time, manually replaced the flash bombs that were originally loaded with high-explosive bombs and fired another round at the laundry. He then got into the pickup truck without stopping, started the car, stepped on the accelerator and rushed to the laundry. Boom! A violent explosion sounded, and the henchmen who were waiting at the back door to ambush the police who rushed in were blown up and thrown to the ground. For a while, there were people with broken limbs and lying on the ground groaning everywhere. Bang! Ron's pickup truck drove directly into the store, knocking away a henchman who tried to escape from the front door and blocking the door with a car body. After 2 rounds of bombing, the henchmen who still maintained their fighting power immediately shot at the car, but there was no movement. No one in the driver's seat. The braver henchmen approached and opened the car door. They saw that the driver's seat of the pickup truck, which was still humming due to the crazy accelerator, was empty, with only a brick pressed on the accelerator. They were fooled again. "What a bunch of idiots. Fighting with people like you is simply lowering my IQ," Ron's joking voice sounded, directly plagiarizing the original words that Sherlock had just ridiculed in the morning and returning them to the drug dealers. Who? The henchman immediately turned back to look at the source of the sound, which was the gate, but the only answer he got was a Remington exclusive number 12 buckshot bullet. The gushing small lead bullets immediately shot the henchman into a sieve. Ron, wearing a felt hat and a cool cowboy outfit, strode in from the door with a shotgun. Finally, a drug dealer could no longer bear the continuous attacks and completely collapsed. He ran out from behind the temporary shelter crying, "Don't shoot. We surrender." Bang! A puff of green smoke came out of Ron's muzzle, and the henchman fell down. Ron immediately clicked very skillfully and loaded another bullet into the chamber. "Sorry, I don't accept surrender. Go to hell, scum. Drug dealers don't deserve to live." This is one of the beliefs that Ron has reached after being educated in his previous life. If it weren't for the need of work, to completely squeeze the big drug lord Flynn, Ron would have used a Type 63 rocket launcher to bombard his home. P.S. There is still one more update later. Those who are willing to wait can wait, but I advise everyone to rest early. Thank you for your support. Chapter 50, Going Home After Work. Boss, what's the situation inside? Do you need support? Hank's concerned voice came from the intercom on Ron's chest. Hank was guarding the back door. From the beginning to now, he only killed one drug dealer's henchman. Hearing the explosions and gunshots in the laundry, he couldn't help but worry about his new boss. Don't worry, basically everything. Before Ron finished speaking, a henchman who wanted to sneak attack came out from behind a pile of clothes and was knocked to the ground by Ron's gun butt. Now everything is done, you can come in. Wait, you can't do this. Even criminals have human rights. Believe it or not, I will call the police. The gangster who was pointed at by Ron was full of fear and said the most cowardly words in a threatening tone. The drug dealer called the police? Are you a funny guy hired by Uncle Fried Chicken? Call the police. I'm the police. Why are you calling the police? Ron was almost amused by this henchman and directly pushed the barrel of the shotgun into the henchman's mouth. Listen carefully, I'm looking for the entrance to the drug lab. You only have 10 seconds to tell me where it is. 10, 8, 6, Ron started counting with a sly smile on his face, and the henchmen on the ground were scared out of their wits. Wait? Shouldn't there be 9 after 10? I prefer even numbers. Do you have any objections? 4, 2, Ron counted faster, and suddenly he smelled a foul odor. He looked down and saw that the henchman's crotch was wet. The henchman held the gun barrel in his mouth and said vaguely, "Don't count. Don't count." I said, "The entrance is at the door of that big washing machine. Please let me go." Ron shifted his attention to the large washing machine. Even after 2 rounds of bombardment, the exterior was still tough. It seemed that some bulletproof material was used, which made Ron discover his extraordinariness. Ron pulled the barrel out of the henchman's mouth, motioned him to stand up, and then put the gun back on the back of his head. "Go open the door for me, and don't play any tricks. I don't mean anything else. I'm mainly afraid that my gun will go off accidentally." "You know, fuck." The henchman tremblingly touched under the washing machine, and the washing machine was opened, revealing a spacious corridor leading directly to the underground. "There is no passage leading to the outside from here, right?" Hank, who had just come in from the back door, asked. The henchman shook his head quickly, fearing that the gun would go off accidentally if he answered slowly, "No, this is Flynn's drug lab. To keep it secret, there is no exit to other places." Hank stopped Ron, who was going to find out. "Boss, it might be my brother-in-law down there. I think it's better for me to go down." Ron nodded and pushed the henchman forward into the corridor, then let him go in front. "If you find anything wrong, you can just fire the gun and kill the guy. Don't worry, it's all a mechanical problem with the gun. I promise you won't be held responsible." The henchman straightened up immediately after hearing this, and looked more obedient. "That's right." Ron patted the henchman's face with satisfaction. "You know what? Uncle Ron's gun likes well-behaved children." Hank shrugged like Ron. He was helpless with this boss who was full of evil tastes, but it seemed that it was not bad to follow him. No need to take responsibility, daring to do anything, generous salary and bonuses. Who wouldn't want to have such a boss? But Hank was obviously being too sentimental. After a while, he led his henchman and a fat man who looked naive but at a loss. Ron had seen the photo of Hank's brother-in-law, and it was obvious that this was not him. "Boss, we looked around downstairs and found no one except him. This is Gale, my brother-in-law's partner, another chemist. My brother-in-law seemed to have some conflicts with Flynn and did not come. What should we do now?" "Hey, kid," Ron pointed at the henchman's head with the muzzle of the gun. "Does your boss know what happened here?" "No, I swear, he knows nothing until now. Everything happened too fast and no one had time to report to him." "Very good," Ron nodded with satisfaction. "Then you're free now. Tell him everything that happened here and tell him that the IRS is looking for him and hopes that he will pay the tax. As for how much to pay, he should know it in his heart. I think this chemist named Gale will be happy to tell us the sales volume he knows." "Right." Gale, who had been shaking since he was carried up and saw the bodies all over the floor, nodded quickly. Ron raised his wrist and looked at his watch. "Calculate the time. We have made such a big fuss that the FBI idiots should react, so now we're done." 15 minutes later, Jack, who finally arrived late, looked at the IRS spray painting on the door of the laundry with a broken floor and couldn't help but have a headache, but he still took out his phone, found a number and called. "National Guard? You don't have to come. This time it's the IRS people messing around in the city again. Why is there an artillery attack? I want to know why. God knows where that bastard got the artillery from. Yes, I say it again, it's not a terrorist attack." While Jack was still cleaning Ron's ass, He had already returned home comfortably, and the unlucky chemist, because he had no lethality. Ron and Hank tied him up, put him in a bag for dirty clothes, put him on the truck and pulled him back to the garage of the Special Operations Team. The two of them tacitly didn't mention the matter of untying him. There is plenty of time to do interrogation and auditing, so this little cutie will be tied up for a night first. The most urgent thing was to submit a report first, because when Ron was driving home, several terrorist organizations had claimed responsibility for the incident, and the Pentagon was ringing like crazy. Even Francis, Ron's big boss behind the scenes, called to question Ron's brain and asked how much shit he had in his head. How could he come up with such a genius idea of using multiple rocket launchers in the city? However, when Ron told him how much tax he could collect and how much political donations he could get from a drug dealer who was kind and generous, his anger immediately disappeared. Next time if you plan to do something big, it's better to tell those good-for-nothings in the Pentagon in advance. Just now, even the cornhead president called to ask if the United States was attacked. Fortunately, I used the excuse of a military exercise to get away with it. Don't worry, I will definitely do it next time, Ron answered insincerely while pushing open the door of the apartment. A woman with a decent figure and an even more decent appearance, but who was extremely coquettish, immediately stared at him with fiery eyes. Ron had seen this kind of eyes in many women who fucked him. But none of them was more XX than this woman. Hello, my name is Christine, what's your name? Little cowboy. The woman's hand went straight to Ron's chest, and she was about to stick to him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.